Just
That
going
was
straight in.
let's go. That was a great point, Emily. You just said something which I thought was super profound. Could you say it again, please?
Please.
Yeah, I said I'm gonna sound like the biggest twat, but I just came back to London after 2 years away, so it feels like I've been in a time warp, and I've literally come back to my old life. Nothing has changed, but like everything has changed. But I thought I was a really good human 2 years ago, but I came back and I'm like, no, but I was, but now I'm an even better human, and yeah, it's just really nice because you get that kind of perspective when you come back to a place, and it's like everything is so similar, but it's so different because I'm different. So yeah, regardless of Corona, obviously. So
Yo. I think this is a bit off the cuff, but welcome Emily Anger to Evolve
Welcome.
Chief Thrive.
Exactly. That is
She-Hulk.
Emily Anger, ladies and gentlemen.
that
Yeah,
is her.
yeah.
The
That was
SheHulk, Emily Anger.
yeah. She-Hulk Anger. I love it. That's a solid name.
Solid.
So sorry, just to provide a bit of context. We were just chatting before we started our podcast today, and Emily, you were talking about leaving London and going on your travels and going basically away for 2 years. And now I'd asked you before we came on air, where are you right now? And you said you're back in your room where you used to be, but nothing has changed, but everything has changed. And that prefaces what you said previously, which was that you're so different now because of, well, basically 2 years, like what, 700 odd days, and it's now made you into a different kind of person. I don't know where to go with that, but I almost want to leave the floor to you and be like, okay, so how did you get from where you were to kind of where you are now? If that's not too big a question to start with.
Always go big or go home, man.
Yeah, go big or go home. That's just how it is. Well, I mean, there's been so much happening this last couple of years in my life in terms of, I mean, literally everything. You know, I moved countries. I left my job. I left a relationship. So it's been a lot of like change that has been really hard in my life. And then on top of that, you know, I haven't lived in Sweden since I was 19, 20. And on top of that, like I moved back for 6 months, living with my parents, first living with my dad, which was in itself really difficult because I haven't lived with my dad since I was 4 years old. So this was like a really, like, it was a shock. And then living back with my mom, which is like my childhood home. So a lot of like old stuff about me came back, and I'm like, wow, this is super interesting because I'm feeling like I'm stepping into an old person, but I'm not her anymore. So I'm dealing with a lot of like triggers, and now I have to like try and maneuver myself trying to be this nice person that I know I am without falling back to old patterns. So it's just been a really tough year, but like I've loved it, but I've also had many cries, many like really lonely nights, and it's been really, really tough. But I genuinely think, as I said to Anabolic Brown later, like everything just happens, and we just kind of take it as it is. And I said this earlier today in one of my Instagram stories, like life is just perfect, and it takes us to where it needs to be in the moment. And I think we can't expect anything to happen. Like things are just going to happen. We're just going to have to like take it for what it is, and hopefully we get what we want later on. Like hopefully we get that house and that guy and that dream job and whatever we want in life, but we might not be ready for that yet. So we need to still kind of take us for where we are right now and just keep growing and just take the lessons as life give them. So yeah.
Can't fight that.
That's the exact same feeling I think I've had doing this podcast. I've referenced a few times where I look back to myself when I first started the podcast, thinking that I had like, okay, I've got a good basis of what to talk about and like maybe experiences to draw from. But then I look at my mannerisms and I look at the way kind of I was conducting, and I'm like, oh well, now there's so much more. I feel like growth now compared to then, but not much has changed. It's been a couple of days in between that, you know what I mean, a couple of weeks, a couple of more detailed conversations, and all of a sudden you're in a completely different place. And you didn't, like, I had no idea that I had to grow as that in that way back then. I had no understanding that this is the way that life through me needs to develop in that way. You know what I mean? And then now, as a result of doing it, I feel like I'm better for it. But the best thing after it is like, oh shit, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder how else I'm going to develop now. You know what I mean? Do you get that?
Yeah, that's what I like. I'm almost a little bit excited when I'm like, shit, this is going to be tough. You know, because then you know that you're about to grow shitloads. I try not to swear so much. I did this one podcast and I was swearing all the time, and I was like in the middle of it, I was like, "Ooh, am I allowed to swear?" And like, you said "fuck" like 30 times. I was like, so I'm gonna try and give it go today. I promise.
If you want, you can try and break that record. It's fine.
Yeah.
I expect at least 31 now.
But do you think, Mark, that the growth has also come from having these discussions? Because I genuinely think, life, you learn so much from having these deep conversations with people, which it takes a bit of stretching to get into this sort of communication. You don't, like, some people, they don't have that capacity yet because they've never been exposed to having these kind of conversations where it's like, it's not really about right or wrong. It's just about like exploring things and going a little bit deeper, and then like being curious about like, oh, but I wonder, and then you keep digging, and then you talk to someone else about it, like, oh, I didn't see it that way, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've just realized so many things about myself, and then we just like go and explore, and it's just really, really awesome. So
it's incredible, and I think I know exactly why Umar is just cracking up with a big smile there, because I say that almost every podcast. It's like every few podcasts I just come in with like people just try and have good conversations, forget about like, all right, small talk, maybe just to ramp yourself up into it, but just if you're curious about something, even just the tiniest thing, even if it sounds stupid, like I asked my housemate, because I haven't played computer games for ages. I don't even remember the last time I picked up a control pad to play PS4 or whatever the hell the console was. See, I don't even remember anymore. But he still plays. So I was like, look, I'm curious about, what you still get out of it. And it sounds like a stupid question. It's like, what do you get out of computer games? But it's like, it's going to help me understand a little bit about, the human psyche, or, what it is. And also if there's any judgment around it, I can completely eliminate that, because I understand now what the basis for playing a game is, whether it's escapism, whether it's like, it's problem solving, all that kind of stuff that goes, and people get out of it. So, and you just learn something. And even though it seems like it's not that much, it's just like a little detail. You get, it just shapes your worldview. It just ends up adding that little extra bit of perspective and just widens things out for you. And then you end up having a little bit more appreciation for things.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally agree. That's I'm smiling so much when you were talking and what you're saying, because I'll link it back to, I think we had that at UP a few times where I'd come in on the morning and okay, so I'm gonna like slowly tell the story of Emily Anger, because we didn't do. It's my fault. Sorry, people. There's this girl on the podcast. You have no idea who she is, but who she is. She is 8 minutes in. And we're like, who's this Swedish chick? Like, why is she here? So basically, me and Emily met when I actually knew you before you knew me, because I Instagram stalked you because you were a famous UP trainer before I knew anything. I showed up on the leg day that I talked about last week with Nick Daniel, and Emily was standing on the prowler and making my life even harder, and making me push her as well as like 40 kilos up and down the Mayfair track, which is unnecessarily long. So this is how I know Emily.
Anyway.
Yeah, this is how I know Emily. So we worked in London together, and since she's been on this very, very interesting journey. But I feel like it started this like kind of understanding between me and you, kind of recognizing each other and be like, oh, okay, Emily thinks like this too. Like maybe there's other things in the way, but I feel like the want to have these conversations is quite evident in some people, because they always ask this like a question which triggers in my mind, oh, this person thinks a bit differently. You know what I mean? And I feel like the odd occasion where I'd walk in at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and Emily would be there, or you would walk in and it would just be like, so how are you? And it would be like, oh, okay, well, it's like this. Like, I mean, let me tell you about the last couple of days. And then all of a sudden, it has a very different spin with one person A and person B. And Emily's definitely that person where we started just pulling on that thread. And, oh, okay, there's loads more there. Well, I wonder what else. But we hold on and just, you're off on that ride and you're talking. And it's like, okay, this is great. So that's kind of leads us to right here. But I really resonate with what you just said there. Like you said, we always talk about this thought of having good conversations with good people. And I said this a few times on the podcast. Have you seen the movie Joker, the one Joaquin Phoenix one? When he has that when he's talking to the therapist right at the start, and he's like, all I have are negative thoughts. I feel so privileged in my life because all I have are conversations like this. I feel like I have them so often and so many times with so many different people, and I'm so thankful to G because he started this podcast off by just ringing me one day and said, "Do you want to just chat and record it?" And it's so random, but it's turned into so many amazing like memories. I feel like I'll watch these back in 10 years time, or like show them to my kid one day and be like, "This is what we were chatting about like years ago." Like, see, there's actually something in this brain. Like, I hope there's something there. So yeah, I completely resonate with what you just said there about having these deep, just correct conversations, I think.
But I think for me, you know, as it was a tricky time in our life when we were working at our last workplace, and you know, I wouldn't have made it through if I didn't have these connections. Like, it was, for me, it was, I mean, I can only really speak from my own reality of it, but it was a really tough time in my life. And therefore, like, the people that you had around you, it was super important to be able to have some form of connection. And I think you and I hit it up so quickly. And I just think some people also have this, like, you just feel energetically that you're on the same wavelength, so you don't even have to really communicate without, like, I know where you are, and like, if you want to talk, we can talk. And then it's, so you always find those people in your life, and those are the ones that kind of like you come back to. And like, this is why we're here right now. It's like you just come back to those people because they it's just some energetic connection, I think, you know. But I think that's how I want to live my life as well. Like, I choose how I want to live my life. And I really think that, I mean, if you guys have you read the book called The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never read it.
Yeah, so that's the Holocaust survivor, one of the men in there, and he wrote a book. And basically, one of his quotes, and I'm going to paraphrase it now, but he says, like, the one who has a why can endure any how. And, you know, he survived Holocaust and he managed to help so many people in there. And hope is like the thing that connects everyone in a way, but also that human connection. So he was like really adamant to not let other people lose that humanity in ourselves, which was the only thing that they couldn't take away. They could take away everything else, but they can't take away that human connection unless you actually give it away. And that's how I felt a little bit in the last workplace. You know, they can take away so much from us, our time, our energy, our health. Like, there was a lot of things suffering at the same time, but it couldn't take away that piece of human connection, which made everything like endurable, in my opinion. So, and that's why I stayed for a very long time as well, because it was still a very beautiful place to be in, because in all of that hardship, it was still a lot of really beautiful stuff that happened on a daily basis, which you can take and just enjoy for what it is. And that's how I live life now. You know, there's still a lot of stress in my life, but I choose to like enjoy it because, you know, I make it purposeful. So yeah,
that's a great.
But
yeah. Sorry, I'm gone.
No, that was it. That was it.
Yeah. That's a really great way of summing up the experience. Obviously, without trying to.
I don't even say their name, by the way, because I don't want to people like, I don't talk about them as in like this one thing. It's just a time in my life. It's like I wouldn't speak about my ex-boyfriends in their names because they're just people that was a part of my life. It doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make the company a bad company per se, but it's something about things that just doesn't work out. And you just have to like accept that you needed to be in that place or with that person for a time to get the learnings that you needed to move on and actually grow from it. So I'm super grateful for all the bullshit that happened over many years, you know. So yeah.
No, that's a great point. We'll talk about that before we started today. And I can definitely say that without that, like you said, what you said before, you wouldn't have the reference as to where we need to grow, or also what we actually enjoy in our lives. And that we talked on these conversations, and I love what you said earlier about you just know that the person's kind of there, ready. And I think that speak to Garinda, we both definitely had this kind of underlying subtext where like, yeah, this guy's cool. This guy can just kind of jump on the code. And then like I speak to like yourself in that way. I speak to Nick Daniel in that way. But then there's also people you can pick up on and you can think, okay, unfortunately being in that experience has kind of made them so shy and made them so kind of within themselves that they've almost forgotten that humanity you're talking about. And it's not that it's not there. It's that they have to just slowly rediscover it over time. You can, being in this environment with you two, with G most weeks, it helps me kind of recenter there. You know what I mean? And it's such a vital thing that you have to keep hold of.
Yeah, I think so too. But also, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I left that job, I definitely had some form of like identity crisis. You know, who am I if I'm not this job? Because that's what we were conditioned to kind of believe, you know, who am I going to be in this world if I don't have this title? Because that's what they wanted us to believe. And maybe that's, you know, how they see the world, you know, and that's rightfully theirs to believe, you know. But it was a hard transition, and it took me a long time to be like, hey, I actually have this voice. I am this person, and I am going to have to really work hard to prove that. And get myself seen in a world that's super saturated in many ways, but still, I think little by little, and also by being very honest about it and be like, hey, actually, I'm actually struggling a little bit here. I don't really know who I am, or I don't really know. I have these imposter feelings and I have these things. But if you can be honest and then talk to others, you know, that's where you can start to like grow away from it as well. But also just allowing that it's a journey. Like any relationship that you would leave is like, it leaves you with a void, and it's like, I need to now fill that void with something else, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So yeah.
I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that. And I think back to literally, it's been about a year now that I've been back in Leicester, and I didn't do any work for about 8 weeks when I came back. I just kind of didn't like feel so much like it was an identity thing. I think it was just that I needed a break mentally from being that kind of drill sergeant standing on the gym floor, being kind of who I enjoyed being, definitely a part of me, but I was also other parts of me which just needed to come forward. And like you said, find your voice. This podcast $1,000,000% helped with that. Like just being able to articulate thoughts and then carrying these thoughts to other people in my life, and being in this environment is very much me. Whereas this was not nurtured at all there. You know what I mean? It was more like just read off the sim hymn sheet and we'll see you all later. And it was like, well, there's so much more I want to say. You know, I mean, we can't have these long, like we have these 2.5 hour, 3 hour conversations. And it's just great. It's just, it allows you to flourish in the ways that you know also you need to flourish.
Yeah.
Emily,
Tell us.
that,
Go on.
No, what are you going to say, man?
Go, G. It's cool.
I was going to ask you if you wanted to pull on that identity crisis thread a little bit, because how did you pull yourself out of that? Like, what did you do to recenter yourself?
Well, I went to Australia. I took on a lot of hobbies. I think you know what it is as well. We need to have fun, which again, like in our old workplace, there was no capacity to have fun. I remember, obviously, I was there for many years. I was in the gyms for 3 years, and at the end of it, I was literally just a shell. I was, you know, we took a Sunday off, but Sunday was for admin stuff and like catching up on the things we didn't have time to do during the week. So, but there was a time in my second year when I was like, I need to do something for myself. So I started doing salsa. And I remember, and yeah, like, because I used to be a dancer when I was younger, but then I thought I've always wanted to try salsa, and I found something local, and it was on a Sunday, and you know, it wasn't very expensive. So I was like, there's no reason for me not to sign up for this. And so I did, and every week I was so freaking tired, and I was like, I don't really want to go, but then I would go, and it would give me so much energy and joy that it would last me until the Wednesday. And it was like, it just gave me this life, you know, and all of a sudden, and also you're surrounded by people that just isn't in the same bubble as you. And it's like, you have these normal people around you, because we're us fitness people, we're a bit like mental, and we're sometimes a bit isolated in our own bubble and industry, right? That we don't like look at other industries or people, and you see like people are like so different from us. Like we are a special breed in a way, but then when you meet people outside of this industry, it's like, wow, there's so many like different ways of living, of thoughts or issues that we don't even experience, right? And then it gave me a lot of life anyway. And then when I went to Australia, it was hard because I went from being, you know, sometimes we were doing 50 hours on the gym floor and mentorship meetings and other meetings and like mentoring, and we did so many things, right? So we worked a lot. So I went from that to working maybe 2 hours a week, and that was hard. And on top of that, you know, I didn't have friends. I started kind of fresh in a whole different place in the world, but I mean, Australia is a beautiful place to go if you're going to go somewhere. But I just started doing a lot of hobbies, and little by little, you start to be like, hey, I'm enjoying myself. And something that I do now, because I do like coaching and life coaching. I do both. So I'm a hybrid. Let's call me the hybrid. And But part of like someone's identity, I think, and why people go into crises is because we forget who we are in our core, because we identify ourselves so much with what we do as a job. But I will never say like I am this. Like I am not a coach. My coach is, I do that for my living and I love what I do. And of course, it's probably part of my identity, but I'm not my job. And I really think that that makes a huge difference when we can start to like disassociate ourselves from the job that we do, even though it's something that we love doing. Does that make sense? And I think eventually you just, have some fun, explore different avenues, try different things, challenge yourself mentally, physically, and I guess spiritually as well. And you just start to like realize all these things about yourself. Because I think when we have crises, it's like when we don't really know our own capabilities. And then all of a sudden, if you start trying things, it's like embracing being pretty shit in many different things. It's kind of beautiful because then it's like, oh, I actually kind of like that. And I want to do that more. And then, so that was how I did it anyway. I ran away and I tried a whole different few things. So, yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. I feel like there's similarity there. I can almost say that when I came back to Leicester, there was I'd done some jiu-jitsu. This is where I met Gurinder in London, but I'd not done any kind of striking stuff in a long time. And I started that, and I was so shit when I started. Like, it's literally a year ago now. And I look back to how cumbersome I was and how kind of I was just led by my own momentum, and it was just like a ball rolling down a hill. Like I couldn't pivot, I couldn't move, I couldn't kind of control my own mass, right? And now, literally a year later, there's a lot to kind of sometimes hold back, right? And literally a year later, me and TJ were talking about this the other day. It's come along so much, but it's through being shit and through exposing yourself. Like we'll talk about this in the podcast before, training at sometimes 5 a.m. because there's no time to train, 4 a.m. because there's no other time to train in the day. But what you said there, exposing yourself to just being shit, it's like planting a seed, right? You can only go one way as long as you stick it out. You mustn't be shit in a year's time. It's not going to happen. You will definitely incrementally improve slowly, so long as like training is some way decent. I really, really resonate with what you said there, because you've almost like the void you had to fill. You spoke about that a little bit, and now it's a case of, okay, well, there's all this emptiness. I've got to start putting some seeds in it and hoping that they grow. And one last thing you said that I want to go back to. I remember you coming in after your salsa lessons and how much like that's exactly what I felt like.
One song I was sneakily put into the playlist, and it's like, oh, come on, randomly a day, and everyone hated it. But I was like, da.
I don't remember that song, but I remember you being like just a much happier person, and just as simply as that is, like that's a beautiful thing. 100%. I remember the kind of the glow, you know what I mean? It's something I genuinely have that after this podcast sometimes. After I've learned something new, we talk about the course that both of us have done recently with Jordan Shallow, and you learn something, you're just like, wow, this is amazing. I feel so much better having done this, even though I'm having to like rack my brain to get around it. It's a small price to pay.
I'm genuinely like, it came to a point where I was like, I'm genuinely always going to strive to be the worst one in the group. And it was just like, it's just funny because the only thing that I've learned to laugh instead of like judge. I'm like, I just laugh. And I remember I'm a little bit of like an impulsive individual. I will, for example, I started taking salsa and I did like 4 classes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going Cuba. So I just decided to go to Cuba on my own, like over New Year's, just like, because I'm like, yeah, I can definitely do salsa now. So that was, it was also very much of a learning experience, and like how scared I was to go there on my own because no one spoke English either. So it was like it was tornado in my head. But I think since then, I just realized that you just have to laugh. And the only thing I committed to, I was like, look, I might not dance a lot, but if anyone asks me to dance, I will never say no. That was my one commitment. So I would just like dance for like random men on the street. Like it was amazing. And like just like this old men like outside a bar, and you would come up and they were like, do you want to dance? And I was like, okay. And I was like shaking my head, but I'm like, okay. And so I committed, but it was so much fun. And then, and the beautiful thing I think about salsa, or like any dance, any even I would say combat sport, or like maybe there's a form of connection to another person, which you don't need words to communicate, to have exactly, to understand exactly what the other person is like experiencing or feeling, because it's that sense of like we are doing this one thing together, and it's we don't need language to communicate, and it's so beautiful, you know. And that's why I love dancing and the dancing community, because I think if you're not a dancer on your own and you go to like a salsa club, you're probably there to just pick up girls or guys. But if you come and like if you are in like a dancing community and you actually go out, it's like it's not about picking people up. It's just really about dancing, communicating, having these like really beautiful moments together with some people. And you really feel it when you really connect with someone when you're dancing, and you feel some people you don't really connect with. It's like the energetic fields become heightened, or like heightened, and you just know who you will like gel with or not gel with. So yeah.
So
I
true.
fully get that. Yeah, because I've done some salsa as well.
Have you?
So yeah, it was a ton of fun. I did it a while back, and then I did it again last year. And I know that I tell you, I was terrified because I started there when I started going to like the events that they were hosting and stuff. I ended up going to one of them on my own, and I just showed up there. And I was shitting. I was bricking it because I was like, I can't just stand here on the sidelines. I gotta actually dance with someone. So I asked a woman to dance with me, and I'm like, like 6 weeks in or something like that.
You know, like 2 basic steps in the turn.
Yeah, exactly. 2 basic steps, a turn and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, I could do something. At least I'll be able to, do the Titanic with her. That's it. And then I get there and I start dancing with. I remember like this one particular woman as well. I start dancing with her. I was like, I know she's a million times better than me, and she could be having a dance with somebody else who's a million times better than me as well, but she's here with me right now. And I just kind of froze. So I just basically I kept doing the forward step, back step, forward step, back step, forward step, back step, until I felt like, okay, now I should do something. And I was there probably for half the song just doing that, and she's just kind of looking at me. And I was like, oh fuck. And then you just like you start to get in your own head a little bit more about it. But then as soon as I did the first move, even though I fucked it up, I was like, oh, finally I've got it out the way now. Let's just dance, And it was such a hilarious kind of it was like another moment where I just learned a lot about myself, because I was there for like a good couple hours as well. And I left and I just went, whew, that was an experience, because I was surrounded by people who are like way better than me. And but that was a good thing to do, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't put myself in an environment where it's ripe opportunity for learning, because I came out of that, I was a much better dancer than when I went in, even though it didn't feel like it. It was just because I was dancing with people who were better than me and just watching what other people were doing and things like that. It made a difference.
Yeah. Man, I wish there was something happening in London for dancing, but we'll have to wait.
Exactly. You're just gonna have to do it in your room.
Yeah, exactly. I can do one couple in here, that will work,
That works.
Yeah,
that works. Exactly. It's so interesting what you guys are saying, because I feel like I can resonate my own way. Do you know what? This has been in me for so long to want to dance, but I've not been courageous enough to just go and do it, right?
Yeah.
But with regards to combat sports, what you just said there, G, it hits home so hard, because you can stand in front of somebody and you've got your hands up and you're trying to not get hit, you're trying to hit, and you're trying to kind of just basically establish yourself. But one of the things that I touched on in training recently was that I need to get in there. I need to just do one, like it's called an L step. So an L step is basically you move off to the right hand side and you move your feet in like you bring your front foot back, you move your foot off to the side, and you replace your front foot, right? Super simple. And then you do the same on the other side. It's called a J step. And basically it just kind of breaks the stuck feeling in your head where you feel like, oh, I want to do. And all of a sudden, as soon as you do that first basic step, you're just like, okay, and the shackles are off now. I can just do what I want to do. And it's so liberating just to get that out of the way first. I feel like that's almost a go-to now. Whenever I'm sparring, whenever I'm doing anything, it's like I just get it out of the way, and the rest of it will just come, because now you're natural. Now you've moved your body. You've got out of that kind of neutral gear. It's really interesting that you guys have the same thing, but in a very different setting.
Completely. Yeah. Happens, yes.
I think something that I was thinking about as well, because I think a woman can look good dancing if the guy is really good at leading, because like I've experienced some dances when I'm like, I don't even know what just happened. I just walked out of a dance and I'm like spinning everywhere, and I'm like, I haven't learned this step, because somehow they're so talented and just guiding you exactly, and they just like literally just like whoa, and yeah, but I think a realization and an interesting thing that I was thinking is like how you have to let go in order for things to move forward in a way. Because if you're trying to control things so much, you're just getting stuck in like either analysis paralysis or just, I don't know, it just doesn't really flow nicely. And as soon as you can kind of let go of that, you know how we were talking earlier before we started recording about like that lightheartedness a little bit, trying to not be so perfect and like actually just enjoying the process a little bit. Then all of a sudden it's like I don't even have to give so much effort to it for it to be working. And that's what I found with salsa as well. And I'm a massive control freak. So for me, it's the biggest lesson is just to learn to let go and to be led, which is super, super difficult. But when it happens, that's really when you can dance, which is, it's just super interesting. So yeah, a lot of life lessons from taking salsa.
Yeah, fully. It's like that lesson in and of itself is such an important one where if you don't let go, you're never going to get the experience you could get out of it. And it's also, I mean, on that deeper level as well, like it's a woman trusting a man to lead, and it's a man trusting a woman, or taking that trust and respecting it, basically. And that's it's without verbalizing it, that's what it teaches you as well. So, you know, it's a way for men and women to learn how to interact with each other and totally respect one another as well. And so it's incredible where if you don't let go, because the number of partners, like you probably remember it from like going in the classes as well, and like you're around in a circle and then they go, okay, move to the next partner, and you're like, okay, I'm totally vibing with this person, and this was a great dance because they just let me do what I needed to do to let them experience do the steps in a way which, you know, we had a good dance together. And then the next person, like the woman, she just grabs my hand and is like, okay, this isn't going to go well. And it's like, just relax. Okay, you can't just like hold on to me like this. You have to just be able to relax and just feel the energy basically between each other. It's like the way you touch each other, you just realize whether that person's relaxed or whether that person's tense, or if they're going to let you lead, or if they're a bit of a control freak, or if they're actually doing their thing. So it's so interesting to go through that and feel that, and then also and just, if like, that's what I do as well, at least I come away from it and like dissect it like that as well, and just go, oh, there's so much that you can take from this that you can apply to life, basically.
Yeah.
Totally with that. It's almost like, you go to jiu-jitsu, and you got to try jiu-jitsu once in your life.
I really want to. You know, London Fight Zone is like around the corner here, so I should probably. I'm gonna sign up for a class and just see. I've always wanted to try, but I'm working on like my hip mobility. I'm feeling like I'm becoming this old woman. I'm like working from a laptop these days. I wake up in the morning and I do like stretching and like mobility stuff, because I'm like literally feeling my body's getting older, but my mind is like, woo! I'm like back to being 20 in my head. So yeah.
I'm not ready for my body to get older anytime soon. I'm not ready for that.
Have you hit 30 yet?
No, I'm 29 next week, Wednesday. Yeah.
You just wait.
It's not getting me. No, I don't want to play that game. I'm kind of holding on to the fact that I think I have good genetics for age. My dad
so beautifully as well. Like you just move like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like I love watching you move because it's just beautiful. Like I just appreciate you training. Like I've always loved training with you, because it's been like, man, I love watching you train just for the beauty of it. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but like it's genuinely a pleasure to train next to Umar, because you're so beautiful to watch.
Thanks, that's nice. Like, that's a really nice compliment. Thank you very much.
He's turning the color of his shirt.
I'm bashful right now. Yeah, no, it's
like I can obviously say like technically skilled and all of these things, but it's something about it. So it literally, like, because I'm a quite visual person, so it's just something about it that makes it so just pleasant. Obviously, I can technically break everything down, but I don't care about that, because it's, you know, like, I don't know, because there's nothing to do with that. Even though you're so technically good at what you do as well, but yeah. So just there you go.
I appreciate that. I think that's I don't know what it looks like on the surface. Maybe it looks like one of my friends used this analogy this week. He said he's like a swan on the surface, like calm and collected, but under the surface, it's like gotta try and keep this show rolling. I feel like
That's
I'm
right,
doing
man.
that sometimes when I'm training, but it's
Yeah, that's what it's
it
always like,
feels
though.
yeah, sure, for sure. We were kind of going back to the dancing thing. It's almost like when you do jiu-jitsu and you have like a flow roll at the start where there's no real goal to it, but it's a case of let the person do and let me do at the same time. Whereas you go with some partners and it's like a bit herky jerky and you're trying something and all of a sudden you get slammed on your back and you're like, oh well, that wasn't we weren't
That
there
wasn't
yet. You know what I
flowy.
mean? Can we
Yeah.
slow down a little bit? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's like other people, you just have that understanding straight away. And I feel like it's basically the same thing we were talking about earlier, where you're ready for that conversation. You're ready for we can talk anytime. I love when you said that earlier because it's the same subtext, but in a different scenario. You're putting toward movement, and yeah, I totally agree. Totally
It's an
agree.
energy, right? It's an energy wavelength that you just connect into, like subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe in that stuff,
Too right.
yeah.
100%.
So
100%.
It's like you can't not believe in that stuff. It's like
no,
the most rudimentary example I ever give is like you can tell when somebody's upset when they walk into a room without
yeah,
having to look at their expression kind of thing.
yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a different vibe with this person.
Mm.
So it's
Unless you're completely oblivious. Like some people I think are like retard to those kind of wavelengths. But if you're normal, well, I'm the opposite. I'm quite hypersensitive, and I think that's why I can like connect to so many people, and why I want to connect. I think because it's just in my nature to respond. I think I respond to people. So yeah.
That's interesting. I like that. I like that thought of being hypersensitive. I feel like I just share that trait sometimes. Sometimes I'm very much in my own head, and I need to fix my own self before I can fix other people. I need to take a step back and just sleep a bit more, or go and have a good meal by myself, and just go for a walk on my own. Like that's one thing that this week talking to a friend, and I was just saying like, I just want to go for a walk. Like all I want to do for my birthday next week is like just get out and just go for a walk in the woods or something. Just like be alone for a bit. Not that I need to get away from the world, but I just need to kind of heal my own self and just be doing nothing apart from just doing what I like, which is breathing and going for a walk. And like whatever comes into my mind, it comes into my mind. Whatever doesn't, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I just enjoy kind of just being. That's yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Human being and not human done, right?
Yeah. No microwave over here. Yeah, man. I feel like where you are in the world right now. Well, not where you are right now, Bethnal Green, but where you were. Some of the you sent me last time we were on a video chat. You showed me around the area, and I was like, I'm so jealous right now. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. So my dad lives in the woods just outside Stockholm.
Oh
And
man.
it literally is just step out from the door and you just have wood, and the air is clean. Everything is it's just nature. Like nature grounds you. So I think that was the biggest fear for me coming back to the UK, because Stockholm itself, it's a very green capital, and you can find nature so at like it's just ready available for you. Even though you live in the city, it's still there. So that was one of the things that I was a bit scared of coming back, because it's just every morning you wake up and you literally just go into the woods for like a half-hour walk before you start your day, and it was so nice. But I'm still reconditioning my brain that I can go back there at any time I want. It's just that my life up until this point have been conditioned to have conditions, whereas my life is unconditional now in a way, and I set my own conditions, and I need to just calm down in the fact that I can go back there and it's just 2 hours on a flight and I can be there at any point. So obviously where we worked before, we had to like ask for permission to like go home to see our parents for their birthdays and stuff. And then obviously I was in Australia and Asia for like almost 2 years. So it was much further than to just go home for the weekend. But now I can actually do that. I can go home whenever I want, or home. I have home both. I have 3 homes now because my heart is still also in Australia in a way. So yeah, but it's nice now that I can just recondition myself and say, actually, I can put my own conditions down. And now, as to say, like I'm going back next week, and it was only planned to be a few days, but it's probably going to be for the rest of the month now that, things happens differently here in the UK than it does in Sweden.
I miss that. From Kenya. I feel like whenever I go, I don't know if you're the same with Sweden, but just the environment gives me. I feel like I've never taken any kind of performance enhancing steroids or anything, right? But I feel like if I ever did, it would feel like that.
Can we make that clear? Like, can we make that super clear?
Pinky swear. Not once ever. This is just mama and papa. This is what this is. That's what I'm putting it all on genetics. But
You need to pass that gene forward, you know.
too right. That was another conversation I was having with somebody yesterday, looking at a potential suitor and being like, I wonder what like
Potential suit.
gene pool. I don't know how to say that. What, a girl or whatever, right? And see what kind of see what gene pool I'm entering into right now. Where from all these, because again, like you said it earlier, fitness people we're so mental because we'll think about like it's like that story of Donald Trump trying to pay LeBron James and Serena Williams to for them to have a kid, right? It's like what the hell is going on here? But sometimes that's in my brain. It's like what the hell? What's wrong with me? You know what I mean? Why do I think like a normal person? I don't know where I was going with that. You threw me off, Nimes. That's it. You threw me off.
We just declare that you are a natural beauty.
Athlete. Natural beauty. I'll take it. That's my name for next week. Sorted.
Exactly.
I love it.
Mr. World over here.
No, but you were talking about being down in Kenya and you never taken answers. So
the feeling of nature, and it's mad, isn't it? Bonkers how well just breathing in like good air or like the sun and the soil. It's ridiculous. I think we're so far removed from that, being these busy worker ants that we are in whatever job we do. Obviously, we're talking about what we did in London. And G, I know you're the same with your banking background. So far removed from what we actually need to be. You know what I mean? It's nuts how this stuff just brings us back to our roots, quite literally, because we are totally from the earth. And just that feeling is unlike anything else in my opinion. So I feel like I resonate with that. And when you showed me those woods, I was just like, I'm so jealous right now. I'm so jealous. I need to feel that air, just rushing in. This nose is big for a reason. It needs to pull in some good air.
I mean, have anyone of you been to New Zealand? No. I mean, that literally is hands off the most crazy country I've ever been to. You can't compare anything of this world to that place, I think. And just the feeling, because at this point, right, what happened last year, I was there actually a year ago now, and that was me transitioning out of the old job, and that was me being like left on my own in this world in a way. And it was just a perfect place to go and find yourself in a way. Like, you just have to get out to nature when everything is too overwhelming and you just get too worked up about things that actually really doesn't matter. And you go into nature and you breathe a little bit and you move a little bit, and all of a sudden you just let things go in a way that it's like nothing really matters except from like being right in that moment. So I really treasured the times when you get to go on a big hike or just in the woods or explore nature in different places. I'd love to go to Kenya. I've actually never been to Africa as a whole what do you call it? Continent. Yeah. It's it's definitely where I want to go whenever the world is more normal again. Maybe we can go to Kenya. You can be my, my cab driver. You can be my guide.
Cab driver.
All this natural beauty, and you relegate into a cab driver.
I'll take it. Yeah, it's a weird part of the world. At the same time, it's the same. I don't know how much you've traveled, but like I've done literally nothing in Europe. I've been to Kenya. I've been to Dubai. Saudi Arabia, but I've never been to like anything in Europe. And I see these like woodland areas, and I see like parts of Germany, and I see this. That stuff calls me massively. So I'll trade you. I'll trade you. Take me to Kenya. I'll take you to Kenya. You take me to Sweden somewhere.
Just come to Sweden now. We can go to the gym as well.
That's such an attractive proposition. I swear, if we have the next 4 weeks off and the gym is closed, I might even take you up on that end.
Just let me know.
I'll be there Tuesday.
I'll sort you out. It's fine.
Gee, let's go. Evolve Achieve Thrive road trip. Come on.
Exactly. Done. So like, I can take my clients with me because they're all online.
Here we go.
Bro, that's one thing we need to do. I need to train in the gym with you, man.
God damn, all
Because
of us,
I was
all of
actually
us.
I was actually thinking about it after you told me after you said the hypertrophy camp story last week, and then we had Nick D on as well. I was like, and I've said this before as well. This is why I know you. I need that intensity in my life, right? And you bring it, and you help bring it out. And because there was that, I don't know, was it you were training alongside Emily? There was that one
Yeah,
video where you're doing front squats, and
yeah. You
then I
posted it.
was like, yeah, that was it. Yeah, you posted it. So I guess yeah, you were training next to Emily in like in each rack, and then and I said to you, I was like, bro, that just watching that got me jacked. I just trained after that because you're just there and you're at the end of your cut and you've got no energy, but you're front squatting, whatever the fuck you're front squatting, and you're just going just getting it out. And that just got me so pumped, and I
Yeah,
was like, that is what I need. I need that in the gym.
that was fun.
Yeah.
That was. I
I miss that.
remember that day. Remember that training session, Ebs? That was a good
Yeah,
training session.
it was a very good training session. We've had some good training sessions, and I mean that is the only thing I really miss about having a workplace where you work with people. It's that
Mm.
dynamic of just coming together, and then because we all love what we do and we love working out, it's just this thing that is like, yeah, it's the best way of hanging out. If I could take all of my Tinder dates on a training session, like I will sift you out that way. That would be amazing.
That's it. That's the
It's
one.
just,
Maybe that's
that's
where I
gonna be on your
start.
profile. That's gonna be on your
Yeah,
profile.
it'd be
That.
like no,
Yeah.
no gain, no game.
That's so good. Did you just improv that right there and then?
Yeah, I
Because
just
that's
improv that.
all right.
It's going straight to the
That's gonna
bio.
that's it. Straight on the bio. No no gains, no game. That's
I
on.
love it.
It's
I
on.
love it.
Yeah.
That definitely find out about people, don't you? You definitely find out kind of whether somebody's about it. If they don't want to go for that extra rep or whatever. I took inspiration for my workout yesterday from a girl I watched train in the gym. What was it, Thursday? And this girl probably weighs about 60 kilos, and she's just a normal gym goer. And she took a set of squats, back squats, to such a failure point that I was about to run away from my client and go and spot her, just to be like, fuck, that was like, she must have taken her about 7 seconds to get out of an eccentric or get out of the concentric position, like into the
Yeah.
hole, sunk it, okay, held it for a little pause, and just starts creeping up and like creeping
Mm.
and creeping, and then there's a slight pause, and I'm like, this guy's fine. I need to go and make sure she's okay. Like, not that she's gonna fail the rep, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't. I just like, I was so engrossed with what she was doing over there that it was
Yeah.
like, okay, like, dude, just take care of yourself. I'll be right back. Like, because
Yeah.
that was just brilliant. You see someone go there, you think, yes, this person gets it 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're totally right about having that work environment
I don't
where.
train as hard as I used to. I think I train smarter.
Mm-hmm,
I think there's a difference between training hard and training smart sometimes.
mm-hmm,
And you want to find that really beautiful balance. Especially, I'm telling you, Umar, hit 30 and things start to change. You need to like, you need to start like thinking more smart after 30. I think.
oh, scare me!
Hey,
Don't scare me.
all of our clients already believe that after 30 is downhill. I'm like, no, stop propagating that, Emily, please.
No. It's uphill. You just have to let your ego go a little bit more. Like you can't
Yeah.
just train with your ego. I used to do some stupid things, and you do like some. I mean, people would like pick you up for like more eccentrics when you were pretty much like just and it's like no, you got one more. And it's like I really don't, and they were like keep
Yeah.
picking you up. Like that is like maybe to the point where it's stupid. I'm not saying you should
Yep.
not train super hard. You should train
Yeah,
super
of course.
hard, but you should know where to cut it, right? Because
Yes.
once it becomes stupid, the longevity of that is not going to be beneficial anymore. So that's the difference. You should still really train hard, but it's like a
100%.
matter of like a bit more self-awareness, I would say. And I think that's what you develop with the years. It's like, okay, where's the ego and where's that self-awareness saying, okay, that was it. That was a good set.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, you got to come back tomorrow and do the same thing for a different body part potentially. You know what I mean? That across 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's where we want to be. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
rather than kind of just blowing it all on one set of pendulum, and you're just like, well, what are we doing here? Really? Like someone could walk in off
but
the
it
street
was
and be like,
fun.
yeah, it was definitely fun. It's 100% fun. But I think when I started jits, I realized that self-preservation is key, because I remember going from a training session straight to jiu-jitsu and feeling like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I have nothing mentally for jiu-jitsu, and then, or even training late and not sleeping very well, then going to jiu-jitsu the next day and being like, I can't think about anything right now because I'm so wiped out. And that's the consequence. That's the actual cost of spending yourself so much in the training session. But yeah, like you said, you have to go there to know that. I think staying on the sidelines and then not really dipping your toe in the pool, or having somebody kind of take you to failure a couple of times and really knowing what that's like safely, it's a great thing to know for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just got to know when to push and know when to take your foot off the pedal, right?
For sure. We definitely got that training session in G, because we haven't done that.
Oh, yeah.
I've written program and stuff, but I'm like, okay, we got to get this in together, and we really kind of go there.
I'm ready. We make that happen for December edition. It'll be like live in the gym. I want to be
there. You're you said it when you were talking. You said you don't train as hard as you used to, and I think I'm exactly the same. Like there's levels to which I think I've pushed myself hard in the past. Again, like you said, not smart, but definitely just with almost a disregard to my own safety sometimes, and that's not a good thing. You know what I mean? It's not a good thing, but it's sometimes the only card you have to play, because as you get smarter, you realize, oh, I don't need to play this card all the time, but you still have it in reserve to know, okay, if I need to just blow the doors off, here's my eject button. You know what I mean? I can do this because I've built it over time. But yeah, it's fun. Love it.
What's interesting about that is I've always, this is what I get. I've said it to you as well. It's like I've always needed that balance, right? It's like, this is why I know you. This is why I know Sylvia and these guys who can push me, because I'm far from the other end of the spectrum. I was that guy that Nick D was talking about, just like mobility for days, bro. and I would just sit there. I would just fucking work on it all the time. And then after a while, you realize, that's not getting me anywhere, in the sense that I've got the basics now. I've got the fundamentals, but I don't need to keep doing that. I need to push on to the next thing. And so I was always on the, like, training smart was just getting smart alecky instead of actually doing the hard work. And so now is that transition, or it has been for the last couple of years, that transition into, now we've got to get some hard work done as well. So yeah, it's super interesting, like just being on the opposite ends of the scale, and then just comparing your guys' journey with where I'm at.
I think that's a deeper thing. Oh, we've got some weird audio going on.
Is it?
That was you. I think something changed.
No.
Okay, maybe it's just me. Sorry, guys. I think what you're talking about there, G, is something deeper than sometimes just going there with disregard. Sometimes, I don't know how to formulate this opinion, but I'm going to try. Like,
yes, go for it.
When you have to push yourself to that level, it's almost like you have to let aggression take over, and sometimes you don't like yourself when you do that. You don't want to wire those circuits, because it's a dark place. It's a dark place you have to kind of go to, and sometimes you're not ready for that. Sometimes you don't like that. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable to even know. Like I'm shouting in that video. Sometimes I'm shouting because I want to get the rep done. Sometimes I'm just shouting because I want to shout. Sometimes I'm just kind of yelling because I want to just yell. Like I can't do this in public without having a bar in my hand. So people look at me like I'm a loony. You know what I mean? Like that's also the what's going on there. It's not just that I'm lifting a weight. Like I can probably lift that weight well without shouting and screaming, but sometimes there's a thing in your head that needs to come out, and that comes out sometimes when you have a barbell there, or you have a leg press you need to get up off you. So yeah, I think there's sometimes, especially with Nick was talking last week. I know Nick, and I know I've seen him training, and there's definitely more under the surface than just somebody who's lifting weights. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think at times I wouldn't kind of look at it like, oh, I need to push myself to go there. Sometimes it's a case of what you are doing might not have been the worst thing for you at the time, but then looking at other people being, oh, okay, I wonder what that person's doing. It's not it's not just lifting weights, maybe.
Yeah, completely.
I think a part of it's like it kind of is the same thing. Like you have to face yourself, because it's really in that moment where it gets really tough, where you get your true self in your head, right? And like how you speak to yourself, how you what you're going to let yourself off with. If you set yourself a target and you really know, like we know when we say we can't do anymore, but we can do more. And it's really what we do after that. It makes a huge difference. But I think also, what we were talking about, like we are in places in our lives where it's because it's stress. I just look at it stress as well. Like, are we capable of handling that type of stress in any given time? And sometimes we're not, because the allostatic stress is way high. So yeah, just thought it was really interesting, Umar. I'm definitely doing.
Say again. I missed the middle of that because I think it cut out on my screen a little bit. I caught the bit where you talked about allostatic stress. What was the middle bit? Sorry.
No, just how, I think, are we so stressed all the time that we're incapable to push ourselves to that limit sometimes because we actually can't handle it for the stress that we're already like, because we're not actually taking care of ourselves in nutrition or in recovery or emotionally. And it's going to come forward when we're coming into a set like that, and whether we are actually handling that type of stress as well. And whether we come out of that set feeling good about what we just did, or self-talking about what we just did. I think it's you're really like facing yourself in those moments. But most people never go to those moments. Most people just go to almost that moment before they have to face themselves, because people don't actually want to face themselves regardless in anything in life. So it's really, that's why I like training, because it's like you just have to actually, you face your ego, and you know that you have to kind of push through that to get to the top, if we're going to give a good metaphor.
I love that.
What for both of you actually, what goes on in your head when you're at that point where your true self is coming out, and how do you get to the top, in the words you used?
I'm not some I remember, because I think we've had these conversations in the past with like several trainers, or I have at least, and a lot of people would be like, oh, you cunt, or you fat fuck, or you shit. So like people will actually self-negative talk to themselves. I don't think I actually do that. I'm just like, no, you're gonna go for it. Like if you die, you die, kind of thing. Like you can do this, knowing that you will break, but you won't die, unless you have a chest, like unless you're doing a bench press and it's no one there spotting you, you might die. Like you choose your moment. Like in like say leg press, like the worst thing that's gonna happen is me not actually getting it up, but I will have my safety pins, and I will be super safe. So for me, it's more like, no, just try it. Like I get to the point where I'm like, oh, I actually don't think I will get this one, and then I will try it, and then sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, but at least that's where you really know, okay, shit, I now know my extreme limits of where it is, and then next time you just try it again, and then you come back and say, wow, now I got it, amazing. So yeah,
I totally agree. I totally I go back to Eckhart Tolle and say, like, the goal is to die and realize there's no death. Like, go there, like with the pins, and then legit, you got to take it to that place. The only death is not going there, because then you just recede into yourself. You have to go there. You have to, and don't be afraid of kind of failing or whatever, because if you don't, then you never know what you could be, and that's the only death. That's the real kind of like unfulfilled potential. That's sad. That's really sad, and you see people that kind of go there, and then it's like, okay, call that a day here. And I understand that, because I've done that with having like a shoulder problem in my life and being like, okay, I can't really get this bench press up, so I don't really want to push it too far because I feel physical pain. My body's telling me not to do it. But then there's times when thankfully you have mobile hips, or you have like a stable core, and you think, okay, I'm going to take my ass all the way to the grass, and I'm going to feel good about it. I have to really kind of take it there. And sometimes the load is not the thing, because I'm not a powerlifter. I'm not strapping myself up or putting a belt on or whatever for a single rep. But across a set, you have to just trust that it will be okay. And but then it's like you got to know where that line is as well. But before you start drawing lines in the sand, you have to really just go to a place where, oh shit, I can't stand up. It's okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. The pins will save me, right? And that's a fun place. Definitely a fun place. Yeah, but I quickly want to close on what you said before, because I think that's a really good point. You said the other stresses in your life can be so high that it actually prevents you from going to that place and actually being comfortable in that place. And I've experienced that myself, where like I've had like airdyne sprints to do, and I'm so like emptying the tank on this bike, just like rocking back and forth and trying to just empty myself, that afterwards I get sick. Like legit, after the session, I have a chest cold, I get a sore throat, and it's because my body just can't cope with the level of output, because I'm not ticking the boxes in other areas of my life. And I think that's such a key point, that people start to, well, if you're unexperienced, or if you don't know until you know, in the gym, but you have to almost safeguard yourself. And I think Killian Hamilton put it in a post last week. I love the way the guy talks. He's so eloquent when he starts putting words together. And he said like something along the lines of, you're trying to trade in a currency that you can't really afford, because you're pushing your body, but you haven't built up the reservoir of equity or whatever, however he put it. But it was so true, because you can go there, but you have to have done the prerequisite work to have this spendable commodity. Otherwise, it's going to come out in the wash in a bad experience. But yeah, it's training. And training is definitely about that. You have to go there.
Yeah. I think that's, for me now, my training is a little bit more intuitive these days than it has been in the past, where I've been way more rigid and like it has to be a specific way. Whereas now I go in and I will actually like feel how I will tune in with myself and how I feel in my stress in my life, and then I will decide there and then, whether I'm going to go to failure today or whether I need to keep it in the tank. Because if I go to failure today, it just might mean that I'll be wiped out energetically for the next 2 days, meaning that also then my work will suffer, which I'm not willing to deprioritize right now. So it's really about like checking in with yourself, really, like, okay, am I ticking off the boxes, like Uma said, like, am I actually fueling myself properly? Am I hydrated? Am I sleeping enough? Am I doing my stretching or whatever? And then if you keep those constant, then you should be able to go in and train pretty hard, pretty consistently. But if you're not, like I have a tendency to go intermittent self-care a lot, and then every now and then I fall off because I start to prioritize work so much more. But then I see that everything else starts to suffer, so I just have to bring in my self-care routines again, and actually really making sure that I'm more rigid about what I do in terms of recovery, so that I can come back and do more. So yeah.
I agree for sure. I think starting something new. Sorry, go on, G.
No, go for it, man.
Yeah, starting something new, like when I started jiu-jitsu, it's such a whirlwind, right? It's such a whirlwind of like everything hurts. I remember talking to Bilal, my cousin came on the podcast a few episodes ago, and he was chatting to me about like just feeling his body just broken, and I can totally kind of resonate with that. Obviously, rolling with Silvio and rolling with all the guys there, right? You just feel absolutely battered, but then you have to realize that you're starting to explore these other things, but you're not stepping up your game in other areas, and it's like one for all and all for one, right? You can't leave this part of your life in a B grade if you want to play an A grade sport, and it just comes back to bite you in the ass if you don't focus on it, because you end up cutting your longevity down, and then in turn you end up cutting your skill level down, and then you try and make up for it the next time you go in, and you end up banging your head against the wall because you have to just spend your time there. You can't spend your time there because you didn't do the work over here.
Isn't the worst thing then what happens is that all of a sudden you start questioning whether you actually enjoy it in the first place, right? Because that's really when that's when I know, even for work, because I love working, but if I work too much, all of a sudden I get this thing like, I'm a bit, I'm not looking forward to wake up and do check-ins tomorrow, and I'm not looking forward to all of these things. I'm like, okay, I know that I'm probably working too much, and now I need to actually rev up the other stuff so that it becomes a bit more balanced. So yeah, that's for me one of the bigger cues. When I stop enjoying the things that I know I love, that's when I need to like look into everything else, because something is off a little bit.
Yeah, great shout.
Yeah,
great shout.
So big. Yeah, because there's you go through that in so many different things as well. Is like people experience that in relationships as well. It's like a couple of years in, it's like, oh, maybe I don't like this person as much as I did, and it's like you want to think about that a little bit more before you actually decide that that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it happens in so many different things, and like, yeah, it is. It's you find that happening. Yeah, I'm just thinking about like all the different kind of scenarios. It happens with food as well. It's like I did like I'd say I did Burger Tuesdays basically for a while, right? I was just figured out how to make such a good burger. It's like, okay, next week we're going to do it this way, and then the week after we're going to do it this way. It's like, okay, like as an example, it's like, all right, I'm using blue cheese this week, and I use blue cheese. Like, you know what? I love the tang of blue cheese, but it's a little bit too much tang. I need to bring it down a little bit. So next week it will be something else. And then I was doing that, and it was great. So I've got the burger nailed down. Bro, it's turned into a food porn podcast as well.
Yeah, I'll be there. When is next? This is on Tuesday.
That was on Tuesday. If you want something that's going to be damn mighty fine, I've got a pork shoulder slow cooking right now. And that
okay, you lived in London anyway. I'll be walking down this so I can like justify the calories, but
exactly. Yeah, I'll just like throw something out the window because
no. But, yeah. Well, that's fine.
It's all right. It's okay.
Also, I've already had Corona, so we're safe.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
No way.
We did the so-called herd immunity in Sweden. You heard of that?
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, it felt like it felt like you got like an STI without having sex. I'm like, I feel like I've done something wrong here. Like, honestly, that's what it felt like, in my opinion.
Oh god, we're taking this like virtual digital world a bit too far if it feels like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So like
oh
man, where was I going with that? See, I just get lost when I start talking about food.
About not liking what you do when it's like overtakes.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, exactly. See, thank you for paying attention. It was with the food as well. So even then, it got to a point where I was like, you know what? Like this Tuesday, I don't actually feel like I have the capacity to handle a double burger. So I just can't do it. You know, it's just not going to happen. So I have to actually like back away from that as well. And yeah, it happens on like so many different things. But when that happens, you have to ask yourself, is it because I'm sick of the burgers? Like, no, I'm not sick of the burgers. I'm not sick of that process of finding out like how I'm enjoying that burger. I don't have the capacity because, you know, I just didn't sleep as well, or I don't feel like I'm in the right headspace for it. I feel like, you know, my stomach is telling me something to do. I have to tune in. I can't just keep every Tuesday and be like, okay, it's going to be a double burger every Tuesday. It's like, no. What's my body telling me? My body's telling me, you know what, take a break from it. That's fine. And I still love it. It's just that it's toned it down a little bit because it said you need to do something different. And that self-awareness piece that you talk about there is, super relevant, super important, because that happens a lot. I think that will happen to a lot of people with training as well. They're like, you know, where am I going with this? Like, what did I even do this for? So first things first is like check in with yourself as like, why did you even start doing it again in the first place? And what's your vision with it? And then it's like, okay, well, if it feels like you're struggling this much, have a look at what your training schedule's been like. Have you been training a lot over the last 8 weeks? Or maybe it's time for a deload week and you forgot about that, or you didn't think about that, or you need to mix it up a little bit. You just need to do something different, like just throw something else in the routine, even if it wasn't on the plan. But because you're so wiped or you're just not mentally there, just think about doing something a little bit different. And then the week after, you're just like, you got it back. You got your mojo back for it.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're going technical issues again.
No, I missed the mute button and pressed the stop count button. Sorry, quickly on the point you just raised there, G. I feel like it happened to be this week with training, and
right.
not that I kind of stopped loving training, but I stopped loving how I was feeling before I went into my session. And it's like right now, Nick's got me programmed, and he's doing 3 weight sessions a week, 2 cardio sessions a week. Nothing extensive, but the weight sessions, the volume is unbelievable. Like
right.
I don't know if this is a science behind this, but I feel like I'm a low volume responder. Like give me 3 by 6 and I think I'll grow. Give me 3 by 4 and I think I'll grow. He's got me doing 10 by 10 and I'm just like, 6 by 10, 6 sets. Sorry, 10 sets of 6. And I'm just
That's
like, God damn, Nick, this is a lot. And then the B series is like 8 sets of 8, superset 8 sets of 8, and then the C series is high as well. I'm just like, God damn. But pre-session, sometimes it's like you psych yourself out when you've not slept ideally or whatever, and you just feel like I'm just wiped. And I had to move the last session of the week onto the Saturday, and it's only like 24 hours difference, but still. You know, you feel like, I should just do the session. And you think about Grace, and you think Grace would do the session. Why did I do the session? But it's sometimes you just need to move it for the sake of getting a better workout. And I did. I moved it to last night. I just changed the gym as well. I have a membership to a few gyms in Leicester where I find I want to just go around to train at that one day because it keeps it fresh, right? Little things like what you guys talked about, slowly just change the atmosphere a little bit. And you go in there, you see a few different faces, you think, okay, I can turn it on now. That's it's all it requires sometimes, a little bit of stepping away so you can reignite that fire a little bit.
You know what I talk to my clients about a lot? It's about having behavioral flexibility, because it's not about having this rigid plan that you have to stick to. It's about finding ways to make that plan work for you in a very busy life. Because life is such a roller coaster, so we can't have a super rigid plan always. The goal is to be able to stick to a plan consistently, but if we are violating, if we genuinely feel like we need another rest day, knowing that we can come back at it again tomorrow, really that is what you should be doing, not to just go in just because it's in the plan to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you can come in and do it on Saturday, it's not actually doing any harm to the plan. It doesn't do anything harm to the goal, really. You just have to be a bit more flexible in how you perceive that your plan is going to work. Because I think when we can have like a behavioral flexibility type of mindset, we will have less of those fuck it moments, or like, oh, I'm just going to skip that session altogether now because it didn't happen on a Friday. And I just find that is a way, let's call it better way of looking at your commitments, knowing that, it's sometimes you just have to have a bit more flexibility, and then it doesn't actually make anything worse, and then also not feeling guilty, because it's really about like that guilt that we try to like minimize as much as possible. If you can't make things work for some reason, the guilt is the thing that's going to throw you off, not the fact that you missed one session, or you missed one meal, or you ate one meal too many. Like that's not really like huge in the greater scheme of things. But if we make it into a huge thing because we now feel guilty, that's where we start to like not also enjoying the process, and then we start like self-talk negatively again. I'm such a like, I want to ban all self-talk when people are around me, because I'm like, I don't want to hear it, because we don't need to hear it. If we're going to self-talk negatively all the time, we're not actually creating an environment internally that will make us thrive, because we need to have a positive environment inside for us to be able to thrive. And so just on that side note.
I like that.
Yeah, no, to be able to like, you have to do that. Otherwise, how are you going to stay committed to that healthy lifestyle for the rest of your life? Because you're not doing it just for this period. You're doing it because it means something to you for now and the rest of your life. It's like, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years time? It's like, if you keep going down the path that you're currently on, where you're not making any difference, then 5, 10, 20 years time, you're going to feel like, depending on who you are, you're going to be massively overweight. You're going to feel lethargic. You're going to feel shit. You probably suffer from some sort of disease. You can't be there for your grandkids, whatever that is. But then if you make that change and you're going to try and sustain that for 5, 10, 20 years time, it's like, okay, well, I could go hiking, and I can feel like I have energy into my later years, all those different kinds of things. And but if you're not creating that positive environment to do that, if you're not flipping the script on yourself, instead of feeling guilty about the choices that you make, and realizing instead that it's just part of a journey where you're learning to get better and better and better, and live to your own version of your ideal better and better and better, then you're always going to have an awful relationship with it, and you're never going to be able to sustain that result, and you're always going to think it never worked for you, when really it's not that it didn't work for you, it's that you didn't change the identity with it.
Love it. Love it. I feel like that little monologue from both of you needs to be played to so many members of my family, ones that kind of have gone through their lives, and then they get to a certain place, and then they start putting their dreams, their hopes, their aspirations on the next generation. And in like a sports setting, so for instance, like some members of my family that like very, very much into martial arts, and then they pass it to their kids, and then there's like, okay, like you guys go forward, and you go and dominate in this and dominate in that and whatever. And it's really, really toxic, so toxic, because it's a case of like, I didn't do what I needed to do, but now I'm going to lead your life down the same path, hold you to these high expectations, hold you to the standards I couldn't keep myself to, and it just ruins relationships. I've seen it happen so many times, and it's for such a tiny thing. It's just a tiny thing of competition. Like, who sets the standard? What is this imaginary bar that we're chasing? And for what? What do you sacrifice in the long term? You sacrifice like a life, a family, so much cohesiveness that could be other beautiful things. But for this one little goal, people are willing to really just dash all that to the wind. I think it's absolutely bonkers. But yeah, the way you guys put it there made so much sense.
But I think, when it comes to family things, like, I would say, okay, there are obviously exceptions to the rules as well, but I think most people have good intentions in everything that they do. But we can have good intention, but they will have bad outcomes. And I do think that when it comes to family, like they have the good intentions, but it stems from their own insecurities, right? So if we can just see that and have a bit of compassion, and I know it's hard, like, because we all have our own shit that we've been like given from our parents down, or even from our grandparents down, that is hard to deal with, which causes us to have insecurities, right? But if we can just try and understand where they came from and why they potentially would put pressure on us to be a certain way or achieve certain things, then at least we can I think just have a bit more compassion. That's the word I'm coming back to, because it's not about us ultimately, it's about them, and them actually wanting for us what they couldn't give us, in a sense, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like sometimes this generation of, I can speak to this as like in Asian setting. I feel like we are so good, well, better than our forefathers at accessing ourselves and understanding ourselves because of the lack of understanding that they had, and the way in which they then present as parents. It's nothing bad, like you said. I'm really glad that you raised that point, because again, they only want the best for us. But then, like you said, coming from a place of insecurity, coming from a place of fear, coming from a place of their own just anger with themselves, because that was potentially what the previous iteration put on them, and then they learned the same thing, and then they're putting on us. But now it's we're in this age of like self-analysis and self-awareness, and we're able now to firstly see how we feel about it, and then go back to them. And I feel like it's almost our duty. It's almost like what life is teaching us that we have to be good at. It's like, if I want to access my mom, I need to understand that this is a person who's kind of flown halfway around the world to marry into a family, to kind of give up all her hopes and dreams, to raise a family and raise kids. And when those kids don't meet up her expectations, it really pulls the floor out from underneath her. So it's a case of, now I need to read the room better, because if I don't, then I just don't get to have that communication or that togetherness with this person. I think it's so interesting, and so much the goal of our generation of like, I can speak to my culture anyway. It's a big thing. What I think.
You know, I was meeting up with one of my clients, and he comes from the same culture as you, so we were talking a lot about this the other day. And obviously I come from a place that's very different, but we have our own issues, right? And actually this year was, as I said earlier, you know, me coming back, living with my parents, there's been a lot of shit that I had to acknowledge. And partly I think you have to also take responsibility for how you feel about things, because your feelings are your own. That's not something that someone gives to you. But if you can like look at why you feel the way you feel, you can start to like, again, as you said, like curiosity, you can learn so much by just being curious. But I've had some really tough conversations with my parents this year. And I mean, our cultures are not even the same, but I think it comes down from the same place in a way, even though the pressure is different and the perceptions might be different, but the insecurities are going to be similar in a way. And yeah, so, but I've had to have some really heavy conversations with my parents, which forced me to grow massively, because it was like, I think the hardest conversations that you need to have sometimes are the ones that you have with your family. And yeah, but that was tough. So yeah,
but came out better for it,
hopefully, you know. And also I think if you want to have a functioning relationship with anyone, you can't be, and this is the point of who I am, like I don't want to have relationships with anyone where I feel like we have to brush things under the carpet. Like if there is an issue, I'd really feel like it needs to be addressed, and it's not because I want to put blame on someone or because I did this and you did that, and we, you know, it's because we want to come to a place where we are understanding each other, and when we can understand each other, we can then go, oh, okay, I didn't see it that way. No, because you saw it that way. And then you can have that conversation and you go, all right, now we can kind of work things through. Versus if I just going to not address something, then we're never going to get to that. And I'm just going to keep that in me forever. And it's going to affect our relationship. And that's how I see, like with friendships, with lovers, with boyfriends, with parents, with brothers. Like that's how I live my life now, regardless. Like I'm going to have that really tough conversation. But I've also spent the whole year doing massive studying on like communication and mindset and like emotions. So like my journey this year has been very much more like an emotional language communication sort of thing, which has helped me to have these conversations today. Because I don't know, Umar knows, but I'm like a very emotional person, and I still am, but I have now the tools to communicate my emotions without them being super reactive all the time. So I have this thing now that I can use so that I can get understood, versus me just like blah, 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 like pointing and like saying like stupid things, because that's how I used to be. I was a very passionate person, and I still am. I just have these little tools now that I can like, okay, what do I actually want to what do I want to get out of this conversation? What do I need them to understand? And then how am I going to get them to understand what I'm trying to communicate? Because the message of communication is not what I'm saying, it's how you guys perceive me saying this. So if you like saying, if you just don't even understand me right now, well, that's the actual message of this communication. It's not what I think it's what it is. So yeah. So
that was big, Ems. That was big.
Yeah.
She's out. 100%. That's so true. The message of the conversation is not what you actually went in there with. It's actually the subtext of, oh, I need to practice talking. I need to practice kind of expressing myself in a way that it's so true. Like I remember kind of being younger and thinking, oh well, there's no point in us talking anymore. We should just have a fight. We should just kind of like get in each other's face and yeah, it's not good though, is it? Because like now I have such little tools, such little means of expression that I'm comfortable with, that I'm willing to just hurt myself and hurt somebody else. That's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Like, but the way you're talking about it there, I feel like that's such an integral part of growing as a human being, is to discover that, oh, I'm really shallow in my tool belt. I need to go over and I need to kind of figure out this and figure out that. And when I get questioned on something, it's not that I need to crumble and like feel inadequate. It's, oh, this is a learning curve now. I need to kind of like shine the light on myself and be okay shining the light, knowing that it's only going to make me better in time, because now I have this exposition about myself there for me to see and for me to kind of be in.
Yeah. When I started this like whole journey of communication and life coaching, and I remember I just looked up and I was like, this is a fucking mountain, you know. And then you thought, like, as I said, like 2 years ago, I thought I was a decent person, and I was a decent person. But now I have this all different awareness about things that I just, it's crazy how much you can grow. And this is why I love life, because it's like you think you reach some fucking potential, and then all of a sudden you just open that door and it's like, wow, you have a whole, like, you're never going to stop growing if you want to. But people want to stop growing. Unfortunately, people like settle and think that, but I am this way. Like, no, you're not. You just choose to be that way. You know, and it makes me sad when people really think that they're so set in their own ways, regardless. And when people say, oh, I'm too old, I'm like, no, you're never too old. And I think that's why I say earlier, like, I feel younger, because I'm like, wow, because I feel like my mind is literally like opening up to this universe, which I don't even see the limit to anymore, which is really freaking awesome. Yeah.
This is nice.
Yeah,
I totally resonate with that. I know G does as well. But it's I feel like it was only going to go one way. Like, looking at, hopefully anyway, you'd hope that where we both were in London, to like kind of feeling a bit stuck, feeling like we couldn't fully express ourselves. But then why at that point in your life do you feel you went that way, to kind of finding out more about yourself, and then eventually leading on to where you are now is what you do for a living? It's very different to what we used to do before. So what is that connection?
I was tired when I realized that I was making myself a victim of my circumstance. That was like the biggest thing for me, when I realized how much I was putting blame on other things or other people. And then I came across that quote by Marcus Aurelius, which, again, I'm going to be paraphrasing it, but it's really, you know, you can't change your circumstances, but you can change how you look at it, right? That's a massive paraphrasing. But, you know, and when I read that, it's like, my God. And I realized that I had chosen to be in this job. No one is forcing me to be in this job. I've chosen to be on this diet. No one is not giving me food. You know, like, it was such a revelation for me when I realized this. And it was like I was blind, and all of a sudden I could see. And I was like, holy shit. And that's when it started. And then I think...
Do you remember this? I'm sorry, I got to cut you off before you started. Remember the first conversation we ever had at UP? Remember what we spoke about? You
and me?
Yeah.
No.
I remember what we spoke about. I don't know why I remember what we spoke about, right? But it hit me because I almost... what you just said to me then is what you said to me the first time we ever spoke at UP. I remember coming in, having a chat with you, and just kind of getting there. But then I think it was even when I came to my interview with Luke, and we sat down, and you said, I think I asked like a few people like, well, what's it like to work here? And then I think you were by the table and the chairs, the stools, and you said something along the lines of, it's great to be here, but you don't have to be here. Like you can choose to not be here as well. Like, and it was weird for me to hear that, because I was waiting, I wanted to hear like, oh, it's great, we have great training sessions and we take clients to failure all the time. It's amazing. I was like, I remember it. That's why I remember it, because it was so not what I was.
Don't do it.
Yeah. It was so not run. It was so not what I wanted to hear. That's why it kind of imprinted in my mind. I don't remember much else from the day, but I remember you saying that. Obviously, we've carried on talking as well. But it's interesting you say that now, because that took me back to that conversation as well.
But it must have been around the same time, right? Because I just moved over to city at that point, and it was around the same time when all of this happened for me. So then I got into like Stoicism. If you guys have heard of Stoicism, it's this philosophy which I massively just indulged over a period of time, and I still think I live my way a little bit in those lines. And well, just to go back to like the second biggest revelation in terms of, I guess, my personal growth this year is like I was in a relationship where it was really hard. It was a difficult relationship for many reasons. It was also a beautiful relationship for many reasons. But the thing I'm coming at is at the end of this, I was the one pointing fingers at many, many things. And I was like, you did this and you were selfish. You did this, blah, blah, blah. And I've been writing in a journal since I moved over to Australia. And I moved out, and then one night I was just sitting there reading my journal, and again the same thing. I was reading my own words, and I was like, I was just victimizing myself, and I took no responsibility in that relationship. And I could then see that maybe I was suffocating, maybe I was too demanding, maybe I didn't care about myself enough, maybe I stopped focusing on myself and I tried to get the validation elsewhere. And those were like my own words coming back at me. And I think that's what really spun up like this whole journey, because then at this point I was on my own. I was living in a country where like time zone differences were all fucked. And so there was so many things that were like super hard. And then I had no other option than to start looking inwards, right? And actually look for other ways, because I think ultimately we all just want to be happy. And no one is going to make you happy. And that's something that I just realized, like no one in this world is going to make you happy. You have to make yourself happy, regardless of what that takes. So yeah, that's just like the full circle, like where I guess it like came to close, and how I got into this whole thing about self-love and blah, 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 in a very not hippie way. But I just genuinely think we have to take like self. It's like self-acceptance, self-respect, self-showing up. Everything has to come from the self. And when we do so, anything is possible, and you will find that everything that you do has a purpose, because we're in the self all the time. So yeah, that is it.
That's it. God,
what are you saying, G?
He's smiling away.
Just power.
Yeah,
I hear power just emanating.
Yeah, but it was a tough journey. Like I've had a really emotional year. Like it's been a tough year, but I've still, in all of these hard times, and it's been, a very long year for me, actually. When I think back at it, it was such a long year, or like the last 2 years has been incredibly long. But I wouldn't change it. Like it's been such an amazing thing. And that's why, when I speak to people and they're so like in the dump, in the deep pits of feeling like shit, I'm like, good for you. Good for you, because you only have one way, and you got to take that responsibility to get yourself up. And when you do, like, you're going to actually start to realize all of these things about yourself, your capabilities, and, you start setting boundaries, and you start doing things, and you start like not just saying things and blaming others. And it's so empowering. Like, honestly, the more you can just like show up, and it's like, nah, I take full responsibility, even though it's not always my fault. Like you can't blame yourself for everything that happens, but you can take responsibility in like how you're going to address things, or how you're going to respond to things, and how you're just going to show up, and also how you're going to carry yourself. So I just think that you should always try and like carry yourself with a little bit of grace, and like be kind, but also so to yourself. So kindness is like, for me, it's my word. You got to be kind.
Kind
So
and be fierce as well.
yeah. But kindness is fierce, in this world where, people don't really dare to be kind. People don't dare to be vulnerable. People don't dare to be a lot of things because you're so scared of being judged, or that you're going to get less opportunities. So people are not going to listen, or people are going to abuse you or use you, or so. Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting to see where you are now in comparison to where you were when we first met. That's a really,
What is
really
your perception? It's just interesting because I just feel like I just had a conversation with my flatmate, and I've lived with two girls for a long time, and they just said, and it's so funny because you don't realize when you're growing, but then you come back and it's in hindsight, it's like, actually I feel really different. I really feel different, and I don't want to like blow my own trumpet, but I've done so much work on myself this year and the last 2 years that it feels super different. I'm not like different, but I feel different. And does that make sense?
Yeah, too right. We kind of go back to where we started at the start of the conversation.
My time warp.
Yeah. I think my perception of yourself, to answer that question, when I first met you, it was a really interesting one, because I remember like thinking that firstly there wasn't many women in UP. There was none. There was just yourself and maybe one other one. Yeah, that was it, right?
And
there was
Savage Martha, of course, but
of course, Marta on the reception. But that was my first thing, kind of like, okay, this is clearly got to be a different kind of person, because there's only one of her. I mean, there's only one of her kind in this environment, right? So she's a bit of a kind of a warrior in that sense, right? A bit kind of a standalone in that sense, which immediately strikes you. But then I feel like where you were almost a bit stuck and a bit kind of trapped, and a bit like a bird who wants to sing its song but didn't really sing its song. You know what I mean? That's the kind of perception I kind of got of you. And I think along the way there was instances, like you talked about salsa earlier, you talked about kind of photo shoot prep and all these kind of things, where there was instances where I could see a bit more, and we didn't spend much time together. We hardly ever, like, there was far and few in between. You'd be on the gym floor, I'd be on the gym floor, I'd be out the door, you'd be out the door, whatever, right? But that was the inclination straight away. There's more potential there, but there wasn't kind of being fulfilled or kind of appeased in the right way. But you could always tell that there was something there to excavate. It wasn't that you would just start brushing and there would be nothing underneath. There's a lot there. There's a lot there that hasn't kind of fully been looked at.
Yeah, it felt like a place where you weren't nurtured for who you were. Like you were taken in for skill sets, and obviously I think I had to play a role in a little bit. I was always myself, but I was the female trainer, and I kind of had to be louder than maybe, like they wanted you to kind of be, they wanted you to be like a little marionette in a way. Like you had your persona in the gym, right? And then so I found that I had to be this person, which was still me. There's still very much a part of me that is a bit like rah. I can get loud if I want to, and I can push people really hard. But there was definitely a side of me that we can call it my feminine side in a way. Like I have a very masculine side. I think most of people that hang out with me is like, I take my space in energy, I think. Maybe not in like, I'm still a girl, but I don't,
Very small.
Yeah, I'm small. I'm very small. So my thing is like, I'm a very small woman, so I had to have this persona that would take up a lot of space. And then having a feminine side was not something that they weren't very used to. And I just think it comes back to that. They didn't know how to handle me, because I was super powerful, because I had both the masculine, but I also had this very feminine thing that they just didn't know how to handle. And that got really suppressed. Like that side of me had to be a little bit suppressed. And that was, I think, why partly it was hard, because I was, if she came out too much, it was like I was called arrogant or bossy in the wrong way, so yeah. So she had to come down. She had to come down a little bit. But then obviously now that I am my SheHulk anger, coached by anger, like I can do and I can be whoever I want. And I think that I resonate with both men and women now, in the sense of, because I still have, I tend to market myself as a female trainer, but I realize I have so many male clients, and I realize that they still resonate with me because I can bring out a safe space in order for them to feel like they can still nurture that side of themselves in a way that maybe some men might not have been able to do with them in the past. Or so yeah, I just think that it's, if you can have both, and you can like nurture both sides of you, if you call it feminine or masculine energy. I think you guys have your feminine energy. I don't know where it is, but you have it. But if you can nurture them and bring them out, you will still be able to resonate with so many more people. And yeah, I think you nailed it there when you said like a bird in a cage. I did feel a little bit caged, because I was just too powerful, you know. They wouldn't know how to handle me. They wouldn't have known. So
just Hulk smashed the place up.
Yeah.
That definitely came across. That almost don't play with that fire. Like it's just leave it kind of caged and contained. And I honestly, without kind of again tooting my own horn, I almost felt the same way, in the sense that I came to work at the company, and I almost like left my bags at the door, and I was like, I've done a lot of experience. I've put myself through what I put myself through, but I want to learn from you guys. So please just teach me what you guys know. But I think in doing that, you almost deny your own self, your own ability, and too much of listening and not enough of doing your own intuition, or your own kind of your own way. It's not a good thing sometimes, because it leaves you always asking questions. They're always waiting for someone to say jump, and then you're like, oh well, I want to jump 5 minutes ago, but I'm listening to you. I'm not jumping as high because I'm being told what to do rather than just feeling and doing. And that was the inclination I got from yourself. But now it's fully different. You know what I mean? It's really good to see. It's really, really nice to see that. And that's what you want for all the people in your life that you know, good people. Anybody. I think all people are good on some level. But you want people to yeah. Speaking absolutes. Yeah, we'll come back to that one. Yeah. But for the good people that you know want to do good for people, you want them to get in a position where I feel like you are right now, which is, it's lovely to see.
Thank you. And we wouldn't have been here without that. That's the thing, you know. We wouldn't have been the phoenixes rising from the ashes if there was no fire in the first place. So yeah,
that's it. That's the one. And you touched on your clients, and that's an interesting thing, because I remember we spoke about this, like we said, in April. But talk to me a little bit about the process. Like what is that like, and how does a client find themselves to be a client of Emily Anger? Because it doesn't seem like there is only just, here's a training program, here's a diet plan, I'll see you in a week, let me know how much weight you've dropped. You know what I mean? That's not that doesn't strike me as your service.
No, I mean, it would be a very easy service if that was the case. I think I'm very much involved in all of my clients' journey. And one thing that I've realized, and it's partly from my own struggles in a journey, but also non-struggles in the journey, I just realized that, you know, your mind is the most powerful tool that you have. And if you cannot align your mindset with what you're trying to achieve with your goals, you're going to suffer, and you're not going to stay where you want to be, and you're not going to thrive in the journey. So
preach.
It really is that way. You cannot be successful long term without aligning your mind with what you do. And it comes back to what you say about identity, right? We have to start identifying ourselves with positivity and success, and taking responsibility, wanting to wake up and do the things that we know we should be doing. And they don't have to be perfect. I know that we sit here and we talk about always training super hard, and like, but you don't have to train super hard to have a really healthy life. Like, you can train sub hard and get good results, be happy with what you're doing, and ultimately that is really what people come and pay for. It's not our ambition of them training hard. Like, I think sometimes as coaches, we have to like check in with ourselves, because we have the tendency of being the really best of the best, or training to failure, and, you know, meticulously really consistent with macro program, you know, but it's not perfection that's going to get people there. It's the consistency and the embodiment of a journey, right? So coaching for me is like, how do I help people create structure in their life and teach them how to redo that structure for themselves without falling off, or so they actually find enjoyment in their doing, but also just being really freaking supportive. Like I know that I don't really tell my clients off, because I know that they will have told themselves off before I would have had to. You know, I met up with a client earlier today, and it's exactly what we're talking about. She's like, I know that when I check in with you, you just don't tell me off. I'm like, because she tells herself off harder than I ever have to. So my job as a coach is really to be curious of like, but what is happening for you to have to feel that you have to tell yourself off in the first place? And when you can go deeper to there, you can start to see those patterns, and then you go like, okay, what do we need to do in order for you to not get to that place? And we can really start to look at creating structures around what everyone else needs. So I think coaching itself, it's just super dynamic and super personalized in that way. Of course, I still do training plans and I help people with their nutrition. I will, depending on where they are in their journey, they will have more structure or they will have less structure, and and then it's an ongoing process. And yeah, so the coaching itself is like, people find themselves when they are tired of yo-yo their entire life in terms of how they feel. I think most of the time our relationship to food is just a direct reflection on our relationship to ourselves. So if we can start looking at ourselves and actually the self-accept, everything about the self that we were talking about before, we can solve a lot of issues. And I know because I've done that myself. And I'm not going to say that I'm a therapist and I've helped people with eating disorders that are severe, but because I've had mild eating disorders in the past, and I have definitely had a lot of stress eating behaviors in the past, which I don't really have right now. And I realized, okay, there's a lot of things that you can solve by not suppressing things anymore and actually making them come to surface without judgment. So that is, if people work with me, it's like self-talk's got to stop. And there's no judgment. It's just curiosity. We have to we have to reframe things and go like, okay, it's not bad. It's not good. What happened? Let's work with it. And then rediscover, like, let's discover what's actually causing the issues, and just getting people into like good habits, right? If we have good structure in good habits that we can just lean on and just know that, okay, I do these things every day, because if I do these things, I will feel good. And when I feel good, I will make good decisions. So this is the one thing I said that to my client earlier, like how I kind of maneuver my life these days. I just want to feel good all the time. That is how I will gauge my success in my day if I feel good when I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And if I feel like I'm starting to feel not so good, first of all, I will ask, what's actually going on? Am I taking good care of myself? Because most of the time that's, you see the red flags. It's like, oh, you stop doing your stretching, you stop doing your hydration, you're not drinking your water, you're like skipping meals, so you're eating too much shit. It's like, okay, cool. Red flags, go back to good, like green light. And then you should feel better. And then also if I feel sometimes, which I think everyone feels, like the imposter syndrome, or like, I'll just go like, cool, I'm going to dig my head in the sand. And I'm just going to keep focusing on the good stuff that I know is there. And I'll just keep focusing on that. And literally, I gauge my life on how good do I feel today? And like, does this make me feel good? And obviously I have structure, like I have massive structure. I'm very much like an A-type person that likes spreadsheets, and my calendar is like color coordinated and 15-minute slots. And like, it's really like, I love structure. Yeah, sometimes break. And like, there's definitely like a lot of structure in my life, but then
sometimes you got to remind yourself, right?
But I also don't stress if I don't follow the structure, because I'm also intuitive enough to be like, hey, okay, I'm really in a flow state here. I'm going to keep working until I feel like I'm getting hungry, or I'm going to just push this a little bit. So I'm not trying to be like super rigid about, as well as said earlier, like behavioral flexibility. When you're in a good zone, you just keep working with that. And then when you start to feel like either some disconnect or just physical signs, sometimes you just go, okay, cool, now it's time to come back to now and do some else, or have a meal, or whatever it is that you need to take care of yourself. So yeah, like coaching with me, it's becoming this thing. I don't even know what to call it anymore, because it is like, yeah, sure, I'm super like results driven. And people come because they want to lose weight. That's what everyone wants to do. They want to feel good in their skin. Some people have more to lose. Some people have bigger issues that they need to resolve. But ultimately, people want to feel good, right? And I just think that if we can focus on feeling good today, it's going to be so much easier to do the things that we know we need to do to feel good. So for me, it's like I try to get people to focus on the feeling.
You're like a, you're not like a traditional personal trainer. You're like a self trainer.
Yeah.
Let's train yourself. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a PT. I'm a
But I still do, like, obviously, like, I want people to send me videos. I want people to have good form. I want people to get stronger. Like, I give people feedback on their performance. So, like, I still do all of that, which is still probably like 75, 80% of coaching. Because ultimately we set a goal, but people think that the goal is the answer to their problem, but it's not.
Yeah.
So the intrinsic goal for me as a coach is to get them into the process of actually living life now, rather than thinking this is I don't even know where I should put this. This is the solution. This is where my problem is going to be all gone. But really, like, we can focus on everything else today, knowing that if I do this today, like the solutions today, the byproduct is still going to be that body, that health, that whatever. So that's how I think about it. And it's for some people, it just takes a little bit longer. But now, like, I genuinely choose the people I want to work with. Like, I don't work with just anyone. You have to want to align. Of course, like, you don't need to be so ready. Like, you don't need to get all of this that I'm just talking about instantly. But this is the kind of coaching that I do, because this is just how I believe in living life right now. And if that's something that people align with, then we can work together. You need to be coachable, and you need to understand that it's not perfection that I'm looking after. Like, I don't believe in perfection. It's like you need to be able to break a plan and still be like seeing that that has nothing to do with you as a person. And when you can just own that person and that best version of yourself, you know what you guys talk about, like, who is the best version, how do I thrive, then it doesn't matter if I fucked up. Because if I have a fuck up moment, I don't say fuck it and I start again in 2021. Like most people are gonna wait, you know. It's like, nah, I just felt emotional. I'm gonna acknowledge that I had feelings, and then that's okay. And then we start again, or you know. So yeah, that was a very long answer, by the way.
That was a very good answer. Beautiful. That was a very good answer. Yeah, 100%. That's.
So I need to probably have a business plan. Like, what is it that I actually do? Because it's just molding into this thing I don't even know. What it is, right? Yeah.
It's genuinely hard to think of that, because I remember we had this chat in April, and I know G's very similar in this sense as well. In that it's more than just barbells and carrot sticks. You know what I mean? It's a lot more than just the basic level. But yeah, coming to terms with a term to summarize it without sounding too woo-woo holistic and let's do yoga in the park and sing kumbaya. It's a lot more than that, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's the key. I think we're almost like an antidote to what people need. But it's always changing, like you said. Something I want to ask as well is this is an interesting kind of the other side of the coin in the fitness industry sometimes, and I'm sure you guys have both seen this, is like, stay in your lane. Like, you're a personal trainer, be a personal trainer, and people's problems should stay at the door. Like, go to the gym, turn your mind off, and then finish your workout and then come out of it, right? That phrase, stay in your lane, for a PT always has never really sat right with me, and I'm interested to see what you guys both think about that. Like, do you think it's appropriate for a PT to kind of do the things that we do? And if so, then is it further qualification? I mean, as you talked about, like, reading more and upskilling yourself and putting yourself out there first, is that the pre-qualification you need to have to start doing what you do?
Do you want to start? Should I start?
Go for it.
I think there is partly so that you need to stay in your lane. Like, there are issues that are bigger than we can handle. There are conditions that we are not qualified. Like, people spend years studying like psychology, and doctors, and like people actually study for a long time to deal with certain conditions in people. And the way that I look at it, like, I work with people who are good that I'm taking to great. And if I need to refer you, like, I have people I refer out. Like, if I have people, I say, look, I think you need therapy. And I say, look, I think you need to see like a functional medicinist. You need to get your gut tested. So I will stay in my lane, in the sense of, like, I know what I should be doing, in terms of, like, I will I will, and I, if I have like some red signs, I will say, okay, I need you to go and check this out, especially when it comes to like maybe blood pressure, or like actually you have to go and like get them to do the tests, because if you not know what you're working with, then, you might be doing so. And as I said, you might have good intentions, but you might be ending up harming someone. And I think, yes, staying in your lane in that way, like, yes, you should. But I think if you're working with people and if you have a good experience in your own life, because all we do is really pulling on our own experiences, and it eventually, like, and I always say, like, I don't tell people what to do. I tell them what's worked for me, and I help them to rediscover what will work for them. Like, I actually have a conversation with my clients most of the time, and I will actually debate with them, oh, okay, if we go to nutrition, I don't say you should not eat this. I'll be like, cool, why don't we try and cut out dairy for a few weeks? Because what I'm hearing is very similar to some symptoms that could be that you might not handle dairy very well. But then you put it back in. Or I'll say, maybe you should go and get it tested. But instead of getting tested initially, why don't you just try and cut it out for a while and just see how you feel? So, in that sense, but I wouldn't say, you have this or you have that. Or I would say, hey, I think that you might have something that is outside of my skill set. And therefore, I think that you should work with someone else, or you can work with someone else in conjunction with working with me. And that's because I think we all, and I do think that you guys will agree that we want people to be healthy, right? And sometimes that means that we need to refer them to other people, because ultimately, at least my goal in this world is to like make people healthier and happier. And if that is outside my realm, then I know that this is not person I should be working with right now. And I will be making a disservice if I was like, yeah, I'm gonna sort you out. So yeah, stay in your lane, definitely. But then, as I say, like, but I have done a lot of courses in terms of like life coaching and NLP and hypnotherapy. Like, I've done all of the courses in that sense as well. But that's more because I like to feel like I can offer something, and that I have something. It's like tools in the toolbox, right? We have done courses. They don't give us a university degree, but they give us tools, right? And then you learn from people that are better than you, or have studied for longer, or whatever, and you can use those tools. But yeah, stay in your lane, yes. But I also think that it's a very blurry lane sometimes. But I'd just like to say, like, if you are good and I can take you to great, then you're my client. If you're like super sick, or you have really, really bad issues, then you need to be working with someone with me at the same time. So I have people, I have some people having therapy whilst working with me. Even though I'm a mindset coach, I'm like, your issues are so much deeper than just mindset. It's something that could be inherently from your childhood or something, and that's not something that I deal with. So yeah. But that's why, like, you need to create a network of people that you trust as well. And this is my mission right now. I'm looking for people that I'm trusting, that I want to be able to, like, hey, I know someone and I trust this person. And then we can have a network of people. So ultimately, we're just helping people in wherever they need help from. So that was a long answer as well. I'm so sorry. G?
He's like, pass it on. He's like, all right, I'm done now. I'm done.
I'm done. I'm going to take a sip here.
No, it's great. Like, no, just keep talking, because it made sense. It's not like it was long and you were just rambling. You weren't like
a little ramble was there.
Yeah.
Felt slightly dehydrated.
Yeah. But no, I've said this to Umar before. We need to, like, just using that highway, staying in your lane kind of analogy, is like, we need to be able to straddle the lanes. Is just understand that, yeah, there is. We don't have an expertise in certain things, and it's just we got to be able to straddle the lane, in the sense that we got to have at least some level of an understanding of what we can work with, and then be able to refer out if it gets to that stage. Like, the red flags thing is a good example. Is like, okay, if there's a yellow flag, that's fine. If there's a couple of yellow flags, okay, I need to pay attention to that. But then if they turn into a red flag, then it's like, all right, I need to refer that out. Like. That's a great example of it. Mindset is a great example of it as well, where you've got somebody who's, they may have had a history of eating disorders, and and then you're working with them and they're actually doing pretty well, but then there might be signs of that eating disorder that still sticks around, and it's like, okay, we can still handle this because you're generally doing well. And you go down that path, and all of a sudden the thing that's limiting them now is the eating disorder, and you're like, okay, I think you actually need to go see somebody about that. So there's and it's just understanding that and having that marked off, like, have that in your notes. It's like, okay, I've got to pay attention to this aspect of it, because that could rear its head in a bad way, and then if it ever does, we know that that's the trigger to make sure that we get that seen to on a deeper level. So yeah, I call it just straddling the lanes. We just got to understand, like, we do hop a little bit over into that lane, just like, the tires just cross the lines, but we never go into the other lane because it's just not our territory.
No, I agree. Yeah. And it goes back to like the whole thing, like, this is why we can't just write any generic shit, because it's just most likely not going to serve anyone anything. So yeah. But unfortunately, it is a very unregulated industry, and this is the issue, right? Because it's one of the most important industries in this world, because we could prevent so much disease and trauma and injuries and stuff, etc. So yeah, I mean, this is probably for another podcast. I could just sit and rant about the industry and it's in it, like it is in this entity, but yeah. So, but I think, as coaches, that when you do this with integrity, and that's all you can do. Like, you can only do your job, and you can only do your job with excellence and keep striving for more excellence. And when you don't know something, you just start looking for more answers. And and when you don't know and you don't know what to do, you should refer them out. And that's just, that's just how it is. But hopefully there are more. I mean, there are plenty of good coaches out there that have genuine interest in their clients. So we just need more of them. So yeah.
I totally agree. I feel like that's the way the industry is going, especially with coaches. Like where I think we align ourselves with is to have this network of almost like, I don't want to use the word doctors, but just people all over the world that can be healing of humanity, right? Like slowly just kind of start having an effect on your local community, and then the other people around the world, and then obviously have this network of, okay, refer to him and refer to her. I think it's a really, really interesting place that we can almost take our own industry there just by being a higher standard than what we already have.
And I think that's where we can, if we can show up and really show that sense of, just wanting to do good by the world, then that will translate into people wanting to do good by their families, and wanting, like, it will come down. Like, if you work with a coach who's so genuine about helping, then it will have an effect. Like, I genuinely think, like, PTs, like, this really is one of the most important industries, because it affects so many people in both ways, unfortunately. I don't know if you guys work with people who are like worked with coaches who just doesn't really have a lot of trust, or so it is hard, like, and it's heartbreaking, because then, like, how do you gain someone's trust when it's like a profession that stops you from getting the trust almost sometimes, but then people are desperate, right? So it's really tricky. It's really tricky.
Especially because the perception is for good reason as well, which is that drill sergeant, and if you haven't followed the plan for the week, then you get blasted by a trainer. They're like, why the fuck have you done it? You said you wanted to achieve this, and you're not doing it. Like, blah blah. It's like, you're just telling off. It's a shit way of telling off a 5-year-old, basically. And then, so I have clients who have had that in the past as well, where they've just had that related, that kind of coach or that PT, where they just saying, like, all right, you said you want to do this and you're not doing as I told you to do it. What the fuck are you doing? And then they feel like shit, and that's also part of the psyche as well. So one of the things I actually end up doing is trying to tell people I'm not that guy, or I'm not that previous coach that you worked with before. Classic case of that was one of my clients had an overindulgent meal and woke up the next day just like a few pounds heavier, right? And then historically, it's like, oh, I feel like shit because I'm a few pounds heavier, and I'm going to get blasted for being a few pounds heavier today, when, I shouldn't be making that steady trajectory downwards. And I was like, all right, great. Because what did you learn from waking up a few pounds heavier today? Is like, actually, I don't feel guilty about the choices that I made, that's huge. That's such a big win for you that I don't care that you're waking up a few pounds heavier today, because you're going to be able to make choices that align with your process, align with where you want to be, as well as be able to enjoy yourself at the same time. And that's what's sustainable, rather than being in what you said perfectly, which was like, that yo-yo situation, not just in dieting but in life, where you like yourself, hate yourself, like yourself, hate yourself, like yourself, hate yourself. Whereas this way, gradually moving up that trajectory of, I'm cool. I'm cool with not being perfect all the time. And so it was such a big thing where, like, I know I got laughed at as well. It's like, you're the only trainer to ever say congratulations for putting on a few pounds. And I'm like, it's because it's a lot more than just what the scale is telling you. It's everything else that you've put into it. And actually, I think that's something I wanted to ask both of you as well. But Emily, like, what's your take on that as well? Because so many people put so much emphasis on what's on the scale that they forget that it's forget that it's bigger than that, and also they live and die by that. So what do you tell people to help them see that they're still moving forward, even if the scale isn't going in the direction that they want it to go?
Trust me, I think this is the thing that we repeat ourselves the most as PTs, right? When you have someone on any form of journey. And it's hard. Like, I think you just have to reinforce that the scale is a very small feedback thing that you have to look upon in the greater scheme of things. And it's really just a reflection on your life as a whole. Like, it's not a reflection of you as a person. And I think a lot of people identify themselves with the number on the scale. And it's like, it goes up, I'm bad. It goes down, I'm good. But it's just a feedback thing. It has nothing to do with you as a person, first of all. And then education. Like, where are all the reasons for why you could have put weight on today? And then you start listing them, and it's like, cool. And if people know, all right, I didn't actually do anything differently than I did yesterday, and I'm now, like, I put on 2 kilos in 1 week, by the way. Like, and that's, for me, like, that's almost 5% of my body weight. Like, it's like 4% of my body weight in 1 week. Obviously, like, I'm a woman, so like I have my cycles, which is, super healthy. So for me, it's like, yeah, I celebrate that shit, and I'm like, and I laugh at it. I actually like laugh when things jump too quickly. So whenever like clients jump on the scale and there's a big jump, I always say, don't know, don't care, don't read into it. If it's a big jump, there's no point in actually thinking like of all the reasons for why it would have moved, because it could be so many, and then you can start talking about poo, because everyone hates talking about poo, and I'm like, it's probably still poo in your system. They'd be like, and I always like this, like this chart, it just like fuses the moment a little bit. It's like, yeah, okay, did you take a shit this morning? No. Okay, cool, well, there you go. It's like, you just so yeah.
Some days that's a kilo sitting right there.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, I literally put on like 1.2 kilos over one night. And I'm like, well, I would, and if we're going into all of those numbers, it means that I would have had to eat 10,000 calories last night if we were going to say that was fat, right? Yeah. So it's just like, I never want to, if anything goes in any extreme ways, I just say, don't read into it. Yeah. Like, don't celebrate. I don't want you to celebrate when it goes down. I don't want you to celebrate any shit. I don't want to have like, you can't celebrate the down spiral if you can't celebrate, like, if you can't like diffuse the up ones. So, but it is hard. It's really, really hard. And I think especially women are way more emotional about it. So yeah, I don't have the right answer for this, because it's still something that, there's not a right. Everyone is so different in how they're going to be doing it. And then being a woman, which you guys don't know what it feels like, you're just not in your senses sometimes, and even though you can be very logical, your emotions will still be the overriding like theme of what you're experiencing. So it's super hard. But that's why, if you have a coach that actually can ask the right questions without making you feel like you're being judged, or like we should never judge our clients for anything. Yeah. We should just be like, hey, okay, feedback, great. Yep. How are you feeling? And start working with people's feelings rather than the actual number on the scale. So yeah,
I think
that's really interesting.
There's the objective and there's the subjective as well. Like, there's other objective measures too. So one of them being, what's your body composition going? Like, what's the measurements? What's your waist measurement? What's your hip measurement? What's your neck measurement? All that kind of stuff. because those will go down, but the weight might not necessarily go down, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, well, your body composition's improving. So actually, seriously, fuck off the number on the scale. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
because the body composition's improving. It's like, how do you feel in your clothes? Actually, yeah, they're feeling better. You know, it's like, oh, okay, so you got your pictures too. So you take a look at your pictures. You're noticing that there's more definition. You're noticing that, you know, your waist is coming in a little bit, but strangely, the number on the scale has gone up. You know, doesn't matter because that's there as well. Then subjectively, the other stuff is like you said, how do you feel? How do you
What
feel
do you
within your
sleep,
body? How do you
stress?
sleep? Exactly, all of that. How do you sleep? What's your stress levels like? Do you have energy to take on your day? Is your mood balanced? All those different things. Because if that feels good, then rest assured the number on the scale is going to eventually improve. It's just never a linear journey, especially with that thing, with that number. Everything else is everything else I would argue is actually far more important than the number on the scale.
Mm, mm.
But it's
I
still
feel.
important, but it's just so not that important.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's still like we don't want to not take the scale because it is valid, but we just can't read into the scale every day. It doesn't make sense. Like we can't. We would go nuts. Like it would be like a woman's emotions. You know, we just can't read into them. That's what I say. Like I trust myself when I'm happy, but I don't trust myself when I'm sad because I'm like, nah, there's something not right. And like I just go like, nah, okay, I'm just gonna wait until I'm happy again
Yeah.
before I make decisions. Because if I'm going to be making decisions when I'm like hormonal, I'll be making some really bad decisions in my life. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's always when I would like break up with a boyfriend. It's like, no, it's over.
And then you just look at your cycle, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. So we just have to learn to like ride the wave, and then when you feel good again, it's like, okay, it's fine. So
Yeah, fully. I have this like visual now as well. Like I talk about it in terms of concentric circles or something. So it's like you got the big circle, which is like, the whole. And then within that, the things that you place emphasis on. And weight tends to be something that takes up almost like 80% of the whole, that whole circle. But then when I try and help them understand that, you got all these other things that we just discussed, and then that circle in the middle, that weight circle starts to shrink. And you realize that that is, maybe 20-30% of the equation, and you've got the other stuff that makes up most of that circle. So I feel like it's like it's certainly helpful to have a little bit of a visual. That's the way I have it in my head, at least. And if anybody resonates with that, I hope that's helpful, because it's just like, here's the whole circle, here's the circles within that, and you can have weight mean everything, so it takes up the whole circle, or you can have it mean a lot less, where it takes up 20-30% of the circle, and everything else has its place as well.
yeah.
I
What
think
about you?
that people, like, based off what you just said there, G, like I said this last week with regards to people's eating and people's dieting, like why it's harder to change each eating pattern. Sorry, not eating and dieting, eating and training. Why it's harder to change someone's eating habits is because it's been so ingrained for so many years. We've had this institution of food since we were literally toddlers, and like your mom feeding you with an airplane, and like then going into like you taking food for lunch and you going out for dinner, and it's the institution's there, right? It's the same thing with weight. It's like, as a coach, I can't go into this putting more emphasis on the thing that you already put all of your emphasis onto. I need to like look at where I should place my consciousness in this sphere to not further like bury you with the things you're already burying yourself with. Like you said earlier, like you can't go into a conversation and shout down your clients because they should already shout themselves down. So it's like, if we, I almost like, my answer is an amalgamation of both of your answers, in the sense that I'm going to just, like Em said, just put no weight on your weight because you already put all the weight on your weight. So it's like, let's just put it to all the other things in the circle, like you said, G, and just put it to one side. Like, it is what it is. It's going to start coming down. If you're doing the right things, it will be a reflection. It will be reflected by your body weight. At the end of the day, the amount of times that you can explain to a client that I think it's the fact that you're not sleeping very well, and they don't have any understanding of what good sleep really is, or what it's like to actually feel good, because I've fully rested my body and my mind, and then all of a sudden the scale weight starts to drop. It's like, oh shit, this really works. You know what I mean? But before that, you just have no awareness to these things. So it's like, I want to make you hyper aware of how breathing can affect your levels of stress, how sleeping correctly can affect your level of stress, how having certain people in your life, or having certain practices like conversations around bedtime or whatever can affect your life. I want to put the meal plan where the meal plan should go, because this, like you said, Ems, it's about obeying and not pissing off your body with inflammatory foods or giving you the right macronutrients to what we think are the right macronutrients to work with your body. But at the same time, let's put all of our emphasis on these other things and see what kind of foundation we can build by giving them the time of day. Like we've given what 14 stone means time of day so many times, but just what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Like a size 12 or a size 16 or size 8? Like what does that ever fucking mean? So let's just try and catch ourselves in that act and almost like, okay, let me take that awareness and put it somewhere else, because I feel like that's gonna give us the habits and the foundation, like you talked about, which over time is going to get us where we want to go. Taking the power away from these things that have had power over us for so long, to starve that and just put the emphasis over here somewhere new.
Yeah, word. That's why I love when clients go on holiday. They just they lose weight. They go out and they like don't track their food and they're just drinking some alcohol, and then they come back and they lose weight. I had a client, she bought a new scale because she didn't trust that she would lose weight. And I was like, "You funny, you crack me up." And then the next day she lost more weight. And she's like, "Okay, I'm not gonna buy a new scale." I'm like, "Okay." Like she bought a scale and she didn't trust it, and then she's like, "Okay, I won't buy a new scale this time." But I'm like, so power of management of stress, that's really what it comes down to, like recovery, right? It makes such a world of difference.
Totally agree. Guys, I'm gonna have to ask if we can leave that one there, because I gotta run off. I've got a client to train in a little while.
No worries.
Sure thing, man.
I
think that's a good point to leave it as well. I mean, there's many things that we could talk about, continue to. I think there's stuff like there's tangents flying around in my brain with all the stuff that you guys have said. But we'll do it again. We'll do it.
I'll be back. I'll be back. SheHulk anger. Yeah.
That's it.
The Thank you so much.
You're gonna next time I'll be back. You're gonna have to be Terminator anger now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Terminate her anger.
Terminate her.
There you go.
Yes.
Exactly. It was awesome. No, thanks a lot for coming on, Emily. It was great having a conversation with you about all this kind of stuff as well. Really felt the energy. It was great.
Thank you. It's been such a wonderful afternoon. If we're gonna put in like a nice phrase, no, it's been it's been so nice. So yeah, I'll be back on.
How do people find you? Yeah, sounds good. How do people find you?
How do people find me? Well, just I think Instagram is the easiest. Not hashtag, at Emily Anger. Emily Anger. That's it. Find me, connect, and just I don't know, have a conversation. I just like having conversation with people. So. Yeah.
Sounds good. That's awesome. And then, for everyone listening, tell us what you think of this episode, download, share it with people who you feel like need to hear this conversation, because there's a lot of gems that are thrown about in here. And get the word out there as well. There's plenty of good content here. And tell us what you think. Tag us on Instagram as well. And when you share it, if there's any part of the conversation which particularly resonate with you, just let us know.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Till next time.